Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you everyone again for coming tonight. We've got a good crowd. We have a lot on the agenda, but I do have quite a few things to talk about tonight. From the Metropolitan Transit Commission, we canceled our meeting for this month. I requested that because it was on my birthday, and we didn't have much on the agenda. On the September agenda, though, we're supposed to have something in terms of the potential agreement or the agreement that we've been working on for numerous years to have 3 or 4 new bus stops put in, or bus stop enhancements put in. So we'll look forward to that. In addition, I've kind of been bragging on the swimmers from this area for the Olympics, but we did get a silver medalist, Ryder Ryan, who's a North Mech baseball player. He pitched to a silver medal for the United States, so congratulations to Ryder. In addition, we received $2,000 from the Huntersville Happy Hour for our police emergency fund. Now, this is something that has been raised by a police officer and goes to emergency needs, that when an officer comes in contact with a family and potentially they need to leave where they live and go to a hotel, or they need something that would help them with their education needs or what have you. So it's a positive interaction between the individual and the officer. So thank you, Huntersville Happy Hour. I look forward to the Lake Norman morning Happy Hour Rotary. Maybe you guys could do something, Commissioner Boone.
We're going to follow the Kiwanis lead on that.
Okay, well, we'll work on that. In addition, in the State House budget, I want to thank State House Rep John Bradford for getting us potentially $150,000 for an ocular melanoma grant, and also $12 million for American Rescue Plan Act funding. Now, a lot of you may or may not know, we were scheduled to receive approximately $17 million based on certain criteria, and only received less than $5 million. And Apex as well. And we did get in the governor's ARPA funding budget the $12 million, and now we are in the State House budget for the $12 million. We hope the Senate will come around to both of them when they finally reconcile their budgets over the course of, who knows, the next 30, 60 days, 90 days, so forth. And then finally, 2 other things. One, I did get to go to the Colonial Pipeline last Monday, and over the weekend was actually, unfortunately, or how you look at it, the 1-year anniversary of those teenagers discovering the gas leak, which is now over 1.2 million gallons that have been recovered. Initially, they had predicted somewhere in the 66,000 gallons. So obviously, it's very much more significant. They did also take some media around on Tuesday, and some additional, I think Commissioner Munger and I were out there, Commissioner Boone and Commissioner Bales, and some other elected officials from the county. What I'll say is that I'm not an expert on gas leaks. I don't think anybody here or in this room are. However, it seems that the experts that are out there day to day, week to week, are saying that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And for all those that live in the area, they will be here a long time because North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality will ensure that that area is back to what it used to be, as well as safe for the next generations. So I appreciate that. And then finally, there's a lot going on about mask mandates and so forth. And you might have heard today that the county, as well as the city of Charlotte and Davidson, are in the process of instituting an indoor mask mandate as of 5 o'clock on Wednesday. The other towns did not sign on to that, at least as of yet. A lot of different feelings about this. I will tell you that similar thing happened last year, which you may or may not remember. Several times the county and the city of Charlotte and Davidson went into a more strict mandate. We did not, as well as the other communities, and our businesses did better. I don't think we had any adverse effects from that. And my understanding is the county is now considering doing a mandatory indoor mask mandate as of 3 o'clock on Wednesday. I don't know where they get the authority to do that, since they did not do that a year or so ago. And we'll just wait for the information that they send us, and I'm sure the board and I and the town staff will make the decision once that's made and where we go from there. So another typical day in Huntersville. Commissioner Bales.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a very short EDC report. Currently, the EDC is working on 50 projects total, and in the town of Huntersville, 31. I would like to share that last week we took Hopewell High School staff, administrators, and took a tour of Ceretex Multicom. They are looking to do an apprenticeship program there, and Hopewell will be identifying students that are 18 years of age or older to participate in that program. We took a tour of their current site while they're building their new site next to Ceretex off of Mount Holly, Huntersville, and their new site looks really good. So looking forward to seeing that coming online. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that's all I got. Back to you.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Boone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, you don't want to miss this grand opening. It's this coming August 19th from 5:30 to 7. It's the Lake Norman Chrysler Carolina Custom. It's going to be hosted by Jack and Robin Salzman. Also this Friday at the Chamber of Commerce, the Mecklenburg County District Superintendent Ernest Winston will be the guest on Focus Friday. This event is virtual. To obtain the Zoom codes, please contact the Chamber. From Public Safety, I'd like to first say thank you to Parks and Rec and Huntersville Police Department for a great National Night Out. Also, school has started. Some schools will be starting up again next week, so please be careful. Watch the speed in the school zones. Watch out for those kids getting on and off the buses. Let's have a safe year. From the Huntersville Police Department, in the past several months, they have seen an increase in break-ins in vehicles. So they are asking you to take your valuables with you, lock your car, close your garage, lock your houses. And in closing, I'd like to say, if you see anything, call 911. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Commissioner Hines.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thanks for being here. This Wednesday, we have a CRTPO meeting. That stands for Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization. The big thing on the agenda, last month we approved the 2050 MTP plan, but we're really going to be looking at the physically constrained projects, road projects, throughout Mecklenburg County, Iredell, and Union County. And as you can imagine, Huntersville has almost every road project by NCDOT on this physically constrained project list. So by approving this, then we're going to be looking at the different funding mechanisms for those roads. Just to kind of give you a recap, prior to COVID, Highway 73, which is one of the biggest projects in Huntersville, was supposed to start right-of-way acquisition in 2021 and 2022 and start construction in 22 and 23. And as you can tell, there's nothing going on out there. And that project was moved back till 2025, 26, and 27. It was going to be one major project, one big project, but COVID took so much revenue away when they shut down the state, basically. NCDOT hit their floor, $345 million, couldn't spend any more money, stopped all projects, stopped engineering. and then they got recalibrated, so all those projects were pushed back. So that's why we were hoping by this time we were going to have a lot more road improvements done, but COVID really set the Huntersville community back, as well as some in Cornelius and Davidson as well. So that's the big thing on the agenda. Everything else is just really informational. But Mr. Mayor, that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Munger?
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize in advance. I'm going to be a little long-winded tonight, but try and get through all this. During the Central Illinois Regional Council Board of Delegates meeting on August 11th, Senator Tillis was supposed to be there, but because he actually was up till an ungodly hour the night before passing the infrastructure bill, he sent some of his staff there. And fortunately, I was able to ask part of his staff if they are doing anything to ensure that the Colonial Pipeline spill in Huntersville is properly addressed in terms of cleanup and any potential damages and fines being paid in a timely manner. The reply at the time was that they were in an information gathering phase and would get back to me. So I did email them to follow up, and I wait to hear what their response is on that one. Additionally, Connect Beyond made a regional mobility plan presentation where they mentioned the Red Line, to which I asked if they had received any indication from Norfolk Southern that they would allow use of their rail lines. The current answer is no, but they remain hopeful. Habitat, I want to give a shout out to Bobby Williams for sharing this. Habitat of Charlotte Region has several information sessions coming up over the next month. Should you know anyone locally in need of critical home repair, these online sessions will also provide information on their home ownership and money matter problems. To qualify for critical home repair, the following criteria must be met. Single-family detached home or manufactured home affixed to a permanent location, owner occupied for at least 2 years, and third, the home must be located in Charlotte, Pineville, Mooresville, Troutman, Cornelius, Davidson, Huntersville, or Statesville. And 4, willingness to partner, completion of sweat equity hours. Income of homeowners must fall at or below 80% of HUD median income to be approved. And Bobby, if you can do me a favor and make sure that that gets shared out on our social media so people have an opportunity to look at that. Apologize for not saying that earlier to you. The dates that they're holding these will be August 24th at 6:30 p.m., August 31st at 6:30 p.m., and September 7th at 6:30 p.m. And I believe North Met Communities United will be participating in the September 7th meeting on behalf of Pottstown, so please feel free to reach out to them. And finally, as always, if you have the opportunity to give, please consider supporting our nonprofits such as Angels and Sparrows, Caterpillar Ministries, Bags of Hope, and Ada Jenkins. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Phillips, good evening.
Hello. I have an Ada Jenkins update this evening. Ada Jenkins has secured some funding to partner with Caterpillar Ministries to have a dedicated social worker in Huntington Green, which is pretty huge. Ada Jenkins is now in need of securing funding to bring the LearnWorks program to Huntersville because the need has increased due to COVID. Efforts are being focused on supporting children in 1st to 8th grade who are as much as 2 grades levels behind. If you are in a place to give financially, no amount is too small and is greatly needed to bring this critical after-school program to our kids in Huntersville. You can go to adajenkins.org to donate. And if you are a business owner or you work at a business that would like to sponsor with Ada Jenkins on this program, please reach out to me and we can set up a meeting and hopefully make good things happen for the kids in Huntersville. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Walsh, welcome back.
Thank you. The Greenway Trails and Bikeway Commission will have their regularly scheduled monthly meeting tomorrow evening starting at 6 p.m. They will be meeting in person at the town center building. The Parks and Recreation Commission will meet on Wednesday evening starting at 6:30 p.m. They will meet at the Holbrook Park Shelter. From the Huntersville Regional Chamber, their next monthly member meeting will be held tomorrow morning in Burkdale. Burkdale Village is hosting the meeting, and it starts at 10 a.m. The location is the old Pier 1 building, which is across from Barnes & Noble. There will be space for mixing and mingling. From Visit Lake Norman, the Lake Norman Fondo cycling event was held in downtown Davison on August 8th. There were 544 cyclists from 13 states. Cyclists either rode at distances of 35, 50, or 75 miles. The Visit Lake Norman Visitor Center walk-in traffic and sales for July set a new monthly record. Sales were up 15% over June. All products are available to purchase online, so people are visiting our area. And finally, I want to give a shout out to our great employees in our Parks and Recreation Department. About 2 weeks ago, there was an incident at Bradford Park during senior softball. Pat Bowles, the athletic coordinator, had to use an AED, or automated external defibrillator, for a senior softball participant. He then placed a call to medic. The participant is doing well and should make a full recovery. Jacob Morrison, our tournament and facility supervisor, has serviced the AED machine and it is ready to go. After the incident, another participant asked about being trained on AEDs prior to the season starting. Pat plans to make sure everyone knows where the AED machines are in our parks through website and social media. There will also be a short video on how to use one. He also plans to do a quick info training on the first night of their leagues to make sure everybody is aware. Again, thank you for your preparation and training in helping one of our neighbors in need. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
That's actually the second one in 3 years.
Yeah.
Any questions of staff? Commissioner Phillips.
Yes, could Michael J. Cox give an update about the Veterans Day Parade, please?
Yeah, so this year's Veterans Day Parade will take place on Saturday, November 13th at 10 a.m. The planning committee for Veterans Day Parade has really been pushing hard this year to make this the biggest and best parade. So this year, we actually, for the first year, we have a theme. Our theme this year is Then, Now, and Forever Proud, Our Heroes. And then also for the first time, we actually have Best in Parade award categories. So we're challenging everybody to get your school, your neighborhood, your sports team, your business, nonprofit, the mayor's pickleball team, anybody be in the parade. We want to make it the biggest and best, and so hopefully help us get the word out. And we have flyers and information on the front desk. Anybody here that needs one, grab one and help us honor our veterans. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. We'll go to our public comments. Our first speaker tonight, we haven't seen her in a long time, is B.J. Caldwell. After that will be Sue Bartlett. Good evening, Ms. Caldwell.
Good evening.
Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
May I take this off?
Yeah, you can take it off.
Good evening. I'm glad to be in America where I can come and give my opinion, even if it is a dissenting opinion. I am Betty B.J. Caldwell. I live at 14521 New Haven Drive. And I'm here about the land swap that took place at the last board meeting. As a descendant of an enslaved African and as a former student of the Rosenwald School in Huntersville, North Carolina, I have a personal interest in that decision. It may be a win-win deal for some, but to me and others like me, this was and always will be an injustice on so many levels to the humans who gave birth to the idea of Rosenwald schools in order for Negroes to obtain an education. If fairness is to be considered in the equation when the town government and business and people conduct business, the people don't come out losers. There is confusion on the parts of the people as to why the regular protocol of publishing the intended deal in the town's local paper was not adhered to. Instead, the apparently secret deal was published in a paper not widely known to local folks, giving precedence to a developer. In a win-win deal, each party involved is to benefit in some way. In this case, clearly those who love and value our Rosenwald School will not benefit now nor in the future. The real winner is the developer who promised at a community meeting to discuss a previous land swap that he would not seek to make any land swap deals that residents did not approve of. Nothing lasts forever, Great civilizations, their money, prestige, and power, like the one in which we are living now, have not lasted. Like a vapor, they are gone, and soon we will be too. Yet the story, good or bad, will live on forever in history books and in the minds of those involved. Many who know of this land swap and remain silent, recognize in their conscious and heart of hearts that this was and always will be a travesty. Thank you very much.
All right. Our next speaker is Sue Bartlett, and after that, Tammy Steyer. Good evening. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Sue Bartlett, 857 Concord Road in Davidson. I'm a member of St. Mark's Episcopal Church at 8600 Mount Holly, Huntersville Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. St. Mark's is a small congregation. We're about 150 families. And about 5 years ago, we decided to be actively involved in ministry, not just donating money to things, but to actually get our hands involved and get to meet the people that we would like to help. We settled on doing a teaching ministry to enable women to be self-supporting. These are women who may be homeless due to domestic violence, just simply homelessness, having lost jobs, and women who are finding themselves heads of households. So we began designing a ministry, a way to help them be self-supporting, and we decided, as you can see, I'm a chef, to teach women to work in the food service industry. So we gathered money, we applied for grants, and we built a lovely building that can be used as an event center for receptions for weddings. And attached to that, we were able, with our grants, to put in a commercial kitchen where we can teach people to work in the food service industry. We wanted the ministry to be self-supporting, so to do that, we sell baked goods at the Huntersville Growers Market. We also cater events at our event center. We opened in April with one student. She was unable to complete the 8-week program due to a death in her family, but we had a second session, and we did graduate our first student just last week. We found over time that our ministries changed somewhat. We were focusing on women only who were heads of household who needed some support. But we found out with our second student that we have a gift for working with people who are not just economically challenged, but who are also intellectually challenged. Our second student was autistic. Because we're small, we only take 6 students at a time. If we had a full house, we can dedicate a lot of time and effort to working with people who need that kind of time in order to learn and grow. So our ministry now is to work with persons facing challenges either economically or intellectually, like people with the autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, Williams syndrome. I'm here tonight just to introduce us to you so that when you're out in the community and you hear people express a need for someone, that you can refer them to us. We would love to have 6 students all the time. Our program is now 6 weeks long. It's 6 hours a day, 4 days a week. And
You
I'm
can keep
done.
going.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Our next speaker is Tammy Steyer, and is David Steyer here as well? Okay. You're not speaking, sir? Okay. And then after that will be Vicki Shu. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please state your name and address. You have 6 minutes.
Okay, great. I'm Tammy Steyer. My husband Dave Steyer is also here with me. Our address is 10225 Hagers Road, and we are here to speak about topic 8B as in Bravo, the Spring Grove development. We're not opposed to the development, and we very much appreciate the cooperation and the improvements that MI Homes has made to accommodate our property. And they've accommodated some of the other residents in our development as well. One of the agreements, though, that is not included in the MI the site plan that you all are approving, or that you all are reviewing, is that they have agreed to a limit of disturbance for our particular piece of property from the southwest and the westernmost property lines. And it includes an undisturbed buffer that ranges from approximately 35 feet up to about 82 feet. And it's all approximate and would, could be subject to change during construction. But it's approximate. So this will be basically a tree save area that has not been counted toward their tree save calculation. It's not on the site plan, and to ensure that this agreement is maintained, we would like for that to be noted on the site plan, either on drawing RZ200, which is the layout for the site plan, or RZ201 under landscaping and buffering notes, just to ensure that the agreement is maintained in the event that people turn over and people change and positions change, and as we go through time, we just like to make sure that that agreement is maintained. And as I mentioned earlier, it could also be counted toward their tree save area. So we also appreciate the planning board's recommendation to make the east end of Hagers Road as emergency access only. And Lori Cameron, who's in our area as well, she's going to talk to you a little more about that, but this is a vital piece of the way the development is laid out in order to maintain and sustain the character of our neighborhood. It's a vital piece of that development. Regarding the intersection of Hagers Road and McCord, the traffic impact analysis recommended a dedicated left turn lane from Hagers Road to McCord, and that's a good thing. Those making a right turn onto McCord will not have to wait behind the vehicles waiting to make a left turn. The Spring Grove staff analysis that was dated today's date, 8/16, it was updated to include the planning board recommendations. It also states that the following improvements will be recommended to the town board by engineering staff, and that is the development will need to coordinate with McCord Industrial Site, which is on the north side of McCord Road, to align their driveway with the realignment of Hagers Road. So this intersection, the intersection of McCord and Hagers, is going to be a busy place at some point. It's also the site of the future thoroughfare for the Siegel-McCord thoroughfare that the future plans are for the development of that road. And that's to relieve a lot of the traffic coming down 115 because of that busy road, as you all well know. So this, was discussed at the August 2nd Planning Board meeting, along with the discussion about improvements on Highway 115 between McCord and Sanford Road. So between the Spring Groves development and the Siegel Road to McCord Road thoroughfare project and the industrial development across McCord Road on the north side of McCord Road, this intersection is becoming a very popular and a busy site. So I think it's an ideal opportunity for the town of Huntersville, the industrial development, and the Spring Grove development to cooperate and develop this intersection to meet all of the needs. And I think a traffic circle is certainly an option. A synchronized stoplight with Highway 115, the McCord Highway 115 stoplight, something along that lines that's going to allow the continued flow of traffic through that area, because it's going to be a really busy intersection at some point. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vicki Shue, and then Lori Cameron. Ms. Shue, I see Mr. Shue is here. I think that's him. Please state your name and address. You have 6 minutes.
I'm Vicki Shue, and I represent Soul Supply at 10219 Hagers Road. And I would like to read a statement representing Soul Supply regarding the Spring Grove development. Soul Supply has been operating in the Hagers Road area for over 30 years, back when Huntersville was approximately 6,500 residents. And we have seen growth all around us as Huntersville has expanded. We've seen developments continually approved. Now development is requesting approval of a developer is requesting approval from a development that will be even closer to our operation than Northstone is. Do we want this development? No. Do the current residents on Hager's Road want this development? No. Do the residents of Northstone want this development? No. Change is very difficult for everyone, and Huntersville has been plenty of changes. We agree, however, that individuals should be able to develop their land, but we also think that it's very serious to assess an overall plan so that the new residents of Spring Grove will not have the same situation that the current residents of Northstone homeowners have. The Northstone developer should have been required to provide a greater buffer and a fence for those residents. You can't change that now, but this is the time that you can do right by the Spring Grove residents. We met with MI Homes and requested that 3 homes decided on the southernmost point of the development that are just 20 feet from our processing equipment be removed. The location of those 3 homes would be detrimental to Spring Grove residents, Soul Supply, and also would open up more exposure to the Northstone. If I understand correctly, they have agreed to do that, and we say thank you to them. We also requested a fence be constructed the entire length of the easement on the west side of the development to help screen the community from the activity on the easement, but more importantly, to keep children from playing on the easement. If even one child or dog was injured because that fence was not required, it would be a tragedy. And I am sure everyone here agrees. I think MI Homes now sees the need to build that fence. In the interest of the future residents of Spring Grove and Soul Supply, we have requested that a disclosure statement be signed by every potential buyer that's going to be in that development that reveals the existence of Soul Supply and exactly what we do, so that they're going to be aware of our presence before they purchase a home rather than after they purchase a home. We have reviewed a copy of the potential disclosure agreement and the wording that MI Homes has mentioned, and we agree with that wording. We want to thank the board members who were concerned enough about the welfare of the future residents of Spring Grove and the current residents on Hager's Road to actually come and physically look at the site or speak with us by phone. We, of course, would recommend that any site of all proposed projects in Huntersville be looked at that way. The majority of the time, just viewing a plan design on a piece of paper does not show all the ramifications of a project and how it will affect a neighborhood. We would think the planning board would also want to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Shu.
We want to thank you for the opportunity to present our perspective and trust the plan changes will be required and implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lori Cameron, please. Is Mr. Bob Selly here? Okay. Please state your name and address. You have 6 minutes.
Good evening. I am Laurie Cameron from 10016 Hager's Road. I want to thank Chad and Cody and the MI Homes people who have listened to the concerns of the Hager's Road residents and accommodated us with bigger buffer, removing some houses, trying to make it a positive experience for everybody. I do disagree with Ms. Shu, who stated that the Hager's Road people are against this project. We would love to leave it woods. It's not going to happen. If something's going to happen, we do support this project. I also thank the planning board on 727 for hearing the concerns of Hager's Road and adding several amendments on their proposal to accept the MI Homes plan and the rezoning. So basically, I want to reinforce some positives rather than just negatives. I do note that the Planning Commission or board voted 8-1 in favor of accepting it with those amendments. The one nay vote was based on the 2040 plan goal and hoping for a mixed price point and mixed use in the town core. Yes, we are a designated town core, but I'm not going to read the 2040 plan, land use 11.1, 11.2, and 11.3. But those considerations support a reasonable transition with existing development. The existing development there now on Hagers Road is single-family homes on acreage. We estimate the dwelling units per acre at less than 0.5. The current MI home plan with the adjustments made is now approximately 2.05. That's okay. But the land use, or the 2040 plan, if they pack in apartments or condos or townhomes, would not provide us with any transition. It would not be consistent with what is already there. The 2040 plan also notes that the town core, which we are in, should have public transit and walkability to retail. We don't. So while we're in town core, to hold us to town core development seems illogical to me. The 2040 plan cites the goal of respecting the identity and integrity of existing neighborhoods. Hagers Road has been there for 50 years. Some of the homeowners are the originals. Most of us have been there 20 or more years. I hope that we can respect the identity and integrity of where I live. I bought there for a reason. I also want to address traffic. That's been the hardest thing to reconcile in all of this. We bought on a very poorly built blacktop on top of a gravel driveway to a farmhouse. There is no road bed. Somebody, the town, threw down some asphalt for us. Thank you. It's holding up, serving 21 houses. It's not going to hold up serving another 127 on top of it. I have sent copies of the petition signed by 100% of the neighbors, landowners on this street that we could access. 100% are in support of keeping us either a dead end or emergency access only. We could not reach two of them. One's in an assisted living center and one owns an empty lot out of state. We don't know, can't access her. Hagers Road, come drive down it. I invited you to do that before. We are 13 to 16 feet wide. 2 8-foot cars, 2 standard cars have to slow down to 5 miles an hour with our front passenger tire on the edge, on the shoulder, or just on the edge of the asphalt. If we're passing a box truck or a UPS truck or a garbage truck, both of us have to go over on the shoulder toward the ditch. It can't handle the traffic. To put it into essentially a loop with this new development would be like taking a stretch of northern 115 that's 2-lane with the 4-lane 115 in front of North Mecklenburg. It isn't going to handle it. Another example would be to splice dial-up internet connection into Spectrum cable. And by connecting us for through traffic on both the entrance or the west side and the east side, you're making us a loop in the new development. So the planning board, fire marshal recommended the solution was to have an emergency-only connector. We thought that would be hopeful. Look at 2040 plan PS-5, where we work together. That allows the necessary connectivity, and I understand the logic and need for the connectivity among neighborhoods. But it came to my attention on the new notes today that the planning department, not the planning advisory board, is countering that and saying that it should be a thoroughfare. Well, if we make it a thoroughfare, we're ignoring the fact that we bought on a farm driveway road. It changes the flavor of our neighborhood. It is going to have to be improved, built up. We don't want it improved and built up. And who will pay for it? It is a town-maintained street. It's not state-funded. We would have to have ditches, we'd have to have groundwater, we'd have to have a new roadbed, we'd have to have new I don't know how to build a road, I'm not an engineer. But that would be at the expense of the town, and it's something that Hagers Road itself doesn't want. MI Homes also said prior to this proposal, when we were saying, is it going to have to be a thoroughfare, that they would, at their expense, put in traffic calming devices, otherwise known as speed bumps, but that would need the board's approval. We don't really want speed bumps. We want emergency access only. The third thing is I like the amendment that the advisory board said that in keeping with development, we need to improve infrastructure on adjacent properties. And look again at the land use 11.1, PS1, and PS9. So infrastructure, we don't have sewer. I have no clout with Charlotte Water. I am hoping that the board can put some leverage on Charlotte Water to bring us sewer, whoever brings in fiber, whatever infrastructure improvements, it would be logical when they bring it to Spring Grove, they bring it to us as well. We've enjoyed some peaceful existence. We're ready to welcome neighbors in this area. We hope it doesn't become contentious or ugly. We're nice people. We just don't want you in our ditches, in our front yards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We have nobody else signed up. Do we have any?
Another person.
Excuse me?
Didn't call one of the time. Didn't call one of the gentlemen?
Yeah. But he seated her minutes. Pay attention. All right. Any agenda changes? Have a motion?
Nope. Yep. You can have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? That's 6-0. All right. Our next, open up our public hearing. 7A is to conduct a public hearing on petition R21-09 Caldwell Crossing, a request by Caprock LLC to rezone 38.1 acres east of Old Statesville Road, Caldwell Station Road, and south of Mays Road from corporate business and transitional residential to transitional neighborhood development, urban conditional district, for a mixed-use development for commercial, apartments, and townhomes on numerous parcels. Mr. Richards.
Good evening. Brian
Good
Richards. Brian Richards for the planning staff. At this time, I'd like to submit my staff report to the record. As the mayor has mentioned, this is a conditional district rezoning from corporate business and transitional residential to traditional neighborhood development urban conditional district. Caprock Development is proposing on 38.1 acres for a mixed-use development. Currently, the uses are mobile homes and vacant. The proposed uses are 25,000 square feet of commercial, 268 multifamily, which are at market rate, 125 multifamily, which are age restricted, and 35 single-family homes, which are townhomes. For a total of 428 units, average is going to be about 11.2 units per acre. As you can see here, the site is primarily vacant to the south. To the north, there's a mobile home facility. Just north of that facility is the historic Caldwell Station School, bless you. And to the east of that is the Lake Norman Church of Christ. In the previous slide, you saw there was a large tree canopy there. In TND, there is 0 tree canopy required. The applicants are offering to save 19.7%, which is about 7.52 acres. There are 25 specimen trees on site. They're required to save 30%. They're offering to save 48%, which is 12 trees. Part of the application, the applicant is requesting 2 modifications. The first is a footprint square foot modification. In TND, when you are more than 2,000 feet from a freeway interchange or an interchange of 2 major thoroughfares, your first floor footprint is restricted to 6,000 square feet. The applicant is asking for a request to increase that to 8,500 on each of the first floors of the commercial buildings. Staff is in favor of the modification due to the fixed location of the access at the railroad at Coach and 115. That intersection cannot be moved any further south due to topography and restrictions with rail crossings and spacings. So we're in support of that. The second modification is to allow for side yard parking in an apartment building. In the main corridor here, they're looking for to allow for parking on the side. Staff is not in favor of that at this time. We're working with the applicant to come up with a solution that everybody can work with. As you can see here, they've provided some site renderings, not formal elevations. These are some that we received early on in the applicant's presentation. They have some upgraded and newer photos. There are numerous traffic impacts being accommodated for in this project. One will be a second northbound lane on Highway 115. The largest ones would be the closing of Mays Road at the intersection at 115, the closing of Caldwell Station Road at 115, and a new traffic light to be installed at Coach Lane and Highway 115 into the development. And you can see that here. To the north is Mays Road. To the next one further south is Caldwell Station. And to the south of Coach Lane would be a new signalized intersection and railroad crossing. In regards to the 2040 plan, you can see this project is, the project is proposed in a mixed-use area. And there's numerous listings of support in the 2040 plan to support this project. And with that being said, with all staff comments, site plan issues, NCDOT comments, Norfolk Southern comments, and working with us on getting an acceptable modification for number 2, the side yard parking, plan staff will be in favor of this project. And I'm here to answer any questions, and the applicant and their team are here for a short presentation.
Okay. Any questions of staff at this time? Okay. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation? Good evening. Please state your name. You have 15 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Michael Cox, and I'm with Caprock. So, first off, thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate that. Obviously here to talk about our proposed project, Caldwell Crossing. So, sitting there. Yep. So this is the team that's kind of behind this project, Caprock, which obviously I'm with, Irvin Law Group, and then Colgenest and Stone. So a little bit about Caprock. The best way to think about Caprock is comprised of kind of 3 main silos. There's Caprock Development, which is a traditional developer. Primary focus of that kind of silo is light commercial, senior living, multifamily, and then they do, or we do, a lot of townhome and single family work. So obviously this project is mixed use, which is a conglomerate of them all. There's Caprock Building Group, which is a fully licensed general contractor. However, the difference is Caprock Building Group will actually only build for the Caprock development. The idea behind that and why we have the general contracting arm is we can control quality, we can keep an ownership mentality as we work through our developments. And then last but not least is Caprock Investments. So Caprock Investments is kind of an investment arm that focuses on helping young, aspiring entrepreneurs get into the trades. So we're passionate about either investing in, help start, build subcontractor trades. This is a big thing for us. We think more and more kids should be excited about the trades, and we think there's opportunity. So we're investing in that. This is the general timeline of our project. I don't think I necessarily need to go through it, but obviously we're here and started about May 3rd with our submittal. So in looking at this project, Caldwell Crossings, there's a few things that we do as a developer anytime we go into any new project. The first is conserve where possible. We are not ever of the approach where we're just trying to flatten a site, basically build a parking lot, get density as high as we can. We like to preserve and try to make it as pretty as possible. So obviously Brian went through, but tree canopy preservation is required 0% save. We're saving about 20% of that. For specimen trees, the minimum requirement was 30. We're saving approximately 48%. So that's where, for us, conservation, is important. The second, foster community. Another way we word this in-house is be a good neighbor. If there's opportunities to meet with your neighbors, be a part of them, do things that are above and beyond, that's important. So what we've done, especially near the school and the church, is we've gone above and beyond the setback requirements. We've gone above and beyond the vegetative screening requirements to try to make sure that as you see those two facilities from one another's point of view, aesthetically, it's as minimal impact as possible. Obviously, there's going to be an impact, but we try to do a good job of going above and beyond to fix that. Connectivity. So for this project, We are working with Carolina Thread Trail, and we will build out approximately 1,250 linear feet of the pedestrian walkway along 115. And then, last but not least, we will build out approximately 1,500 feet of what will hopefully be the Church Street extension. Last but not least, bolster accountability. So for Caprock, any development that we go into, we plan on building it, owning it, operating it. Obviously, there's a for sale component of this that wouldn't be the case for on the operating side. But for us, we take an owner's perspective anywhere we go. We want to build it quality. We want to build it to last. We want it to be aesthetically pleasing to the residents to live there as well as the community around it. And so accountability for us with an owner's perspective is key to any of our developments. I think we know where the site is at this point. I won't belabor this. You've seen the site already. And then, so with that, I'll turn it over to Lucas with Cole Genest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Lucas Shires. I'm a land planner with Cole Genest and Stone. We're a land planning and civil engineering firm out of Charlotte. So I won't belabor on these, but I do want to call out that we are the mixed-use center that supports a mix of housing types, including apartments, townhomes, cottage homes, and age-restricted. Mr. Richards so kindly outlined in his staff report the different policies that make our plan consistent with the 24 community plan. One of those, again, is the age-restricting housing and the mix of housing which we have provided. I'd like to talk briefly about specifics of the plan. Okay. So as you enter, coming in off of Statesville Road, you would enter in there with Coach Lane. We are contemplating some commercial space there, which would be next to the future location of the CAT station. Whether or not that comes, that is what we are working with right now, and the 2040 plan does contemplate that station coming in the future. Just to the north of there, and as you go through the roundabout, you will see multifamily units. Those will be market rate housing. And as you move on north, that is where we've located our age-restricted housing. And then the yellow, smaller lots are townhomes as you transition into the northern edge and the more rural uses with the school and the church. Our townhomes do front the Seam Trail, formerly known as the Mooresville to Charlotte Trail. That will be a 12-foot multi-purpose path. I want to talk quickly again, big picture. So we are constructing a large portion of that Seam Trail. Vehicular improvements, Mr. Richards did talk about this. So we are contemplating closing the Mays Road crossing, rail crossing, the existing Caldwell Station crossing, and then adding a new one at Coach Lane. This is the CRTPO adopted alignment that you see in dash there, which connects Huntersville to Davidson. So this site does construct a very large portion. It will eventually tie in down to 73. You can see that better here in the dashed yellow is preliminarily how we will connect into Mays and then the future down to 73. Couple renderings. So this is on the northern road looking at the age-restricted multifamily as the terminus there with townhomes on the left and multifamily on your right. This site plan is looking south towards the roundabout. At the top right you can see the two-story retail right there, and the stub at the end is looking towards 73, that future connection. And this plan is looking towards 115 that runs parallel with the top of the page there. You can see the commercial and then the multifamily in the foreground with a nice amenity. We are proposing a roundabout to help calm traffic. It's a minor thoroughfare per the CRTPO, and we've worked with them in the town on developing the appropriate cross-section, and you do see that it is a divided median street section there. And with that, we'll entertain any questions.
Any questions of the applicant, Commissioner Hines?
Yeah, thank you for that. Question regarding the improvements. If so the rail line approve that crossing as long as the other two were closed?
No. So the update on Norfolk Southern is, off the record, their feedback has been positive to the closing of those two for the opening of this one, with the thought being the hazards that those two crossings currently pose, with the elevation kind of gain and loss, tractor trailers getting stuck. We are still waiting for formal approval or comments from Norfolk Southern. They had internally a retirement, I guess, that's holding up kind of one person to review that. And so we've, at this point, reached out in a number of ways, but don't have the formal comments back for the actual approval of that.
Okay, so let's just fast forward, say they approve that, and you build the new crossing, close Mays Road. Will there be any improvements to Caldwell Station Road? Because Church Street extension, you won't be extending it from the edge of your property all the way to Mays Road, will you? So all that traffic will be funneling through Caldwell Station Road, or from current Mays Road down Caldwell Station Road through your development to the new access point. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And the TIA does, unfortunately, our traffic engineer cannot be here, but it does call out improvements to the existing Caldwell station. So that would be, I would think that, yes, traffic will circulate there until the actual crossing can be deleted and the thoroughfare completed up to Mays Road.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Walsh?
Yeah, just a couple. It sounds like I did have a question about the parking, but it sounds like we're working to take care of that, and I encourage you to work with staff on that. Can you go over the trail connection again? How long, where it's at?
Yeah, so if you look along 115 there,
Right.
you'll see kind of a path that runs parallel to that.
So are you talking about dedicating it or actually building it? Because a lot of times we get stuff dedicated, but are you going to actually build it?
Yes, our intent is to build it out, correct. And it's approximately 1,250 linear feet.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Bass?
Actually, my question is for Mr. Richards. In looking at the density, 11.23 units an acre, is that considered transit-oriented? I know that the station is supposed to, at some point, at some time,
Sure.
be built, so...
Transit-oriented could be higher in neighborhoods of 20 units an acre. At 11.2, it's T&D. Across the street, you've got Caldwell Station that takes into account numerous single-family homes, and that's at 8.43 units per acre.
Okay.
And to the east, we have the Palillo development.
So this is just, it fits for mixed use?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to confirm.
Commissioner Boone?
Yes, my question's for Michael Cox. Michael, you said you...
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Michael, when you met with the church, can you give me any feedback for how that meeting went?
So I've stopped in there a number of times to discuss the project. All conversations with Charlotte have been great. We have not met in a formal setting with the pastor about this. However, the feedback from Charlotte and what I've heard from other colleagues that have met with them is that they are excited potentially about the idea that this could help grow the visibility and size of their congregation. That is a message, as a messenger. However, my conversations have only been positive with them.
And a follow-up on Commissioner Walsh's question about the Greenway. I think it's, as you're going north on 115, there's a concrete block that looks like an old railroad boating dock.
Okay.
Looks like that's where the trail might go. What's your plans for that piece of possibly historic property?
Is that on the southern side? Are you referencing the old station there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's on your property, but it's pretty close to it.
I think you might be talking about on the southern side or potentially just off our property. Obviously, if it's designated historic, we'll work through that. At this point in time, I don't have a good answer of if we're impacting it and exactly what that looks like.
Well, your for sale sign is about 20 feet from it.
Okay.
As you're going north on 115, it's on the east side of the railroad.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff or applicant at this time?
I have
Okay.
comments.
Oh,
I'd let
Commissioner
the
Phillips?
questions go first. That way I don't sound like a fool. I was just hoping maybe you guys could consider doing maybe dedicated retail, not just commercial, in some spots. I'm not putting, I mean, I know we can't make ask, but that's just stuff that in the past that's come up. And then maybe potentially dedicated affordable senior units. Just things that come our way that we hear about often, to maybe consider, or
Yeah.
not, it doesn't matter.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so I guess comment on the commercial, because I know it's been asked already about, our thoughts here. We view the commercial today as more of kind of neighborhood services, right? So dry cleaners, maybe coffee shop, things that the residents locally can use and would need. On the designated seniors, especially based on an income bracket, I don't know that that's something we've discussed. There are other buildings in our portfolio that's explored. So I would definitely take that note back to our team and talk through it. Obviously, we would have to think through and just kind of plan it out. But yes, we're happy to bring that back and brainstorm on it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions at this time? All right. We have Mr. Michael McCurry who would like to speak, and David McDonald after that. Good evening. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Absolutely. My name's Mike McCurry, and I am an elder at the Lake Norman Church of Christ at 17634 Caldwell Station Road. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Our church has been a part of the Huntersville community for over 25 years, and we have about 120 members. We're very active in the community, including things like our annual giveaway day, where we give away free food and things to the needy in our community. We also have a very active ministry that reaches out to the Huntersville Police Department and a very close relationship with HPD. Churches are a very important part of Huntersville, and we ask your consideration in not allowing development to have a negative impact on our churches. We believe that this proposed development has potential to be very positive for the town of Huntersville and for our congregation if done correctly. We have actively engaged with Caprock, even providing free usage of our building for the community meeting that was held in June. However, there has been some turnover within Caprock. The gentleman who we were dealing with has left the company, according to our understanding. However, we're very concerned about the impact that this change will have on access to our building. Like a commercial business, easy vehicle access is key to the ability of a church to attract visitors and remain vibrant. And the current configuration of this plan will make it significantly more difficult for our visitors and members of our congregation traveling on 115 to access our property, particularly those that live north in the Mooresville area and in the Denver area, coming on 115 to access our church. The current configuration will require traffic to weave through this residential development to get onto our property, and we're concerned about the impact on our visitors, on our ability of people to access our property, and as well as the residents of the development. I'll cede the remaining portion of my time to David McDonald now that I've explained the why of why we're concerned, and he'll talk a little bit about the what and what we would ask. So I'll give it to David McDonald.
Okay. Mr. McDonald, good evening.
Good evening.
Please state your name and address.
David
Yes,
McDonald.
you have plus or minus a minute, plus 3 minutes.
David McDonald, live on 13418 McCord Road in Huntersville. I'm also a member of the church since 1999. Current road access plans cause significant issues for the church, visitors and members, specifically cutting access off from 115 at Caldwell Station and at Mays Road. This, again, as Mike said, will force traffic onto the small street that hasn't been approved by the North Carolina Department of Transportation for improvements at this point in time. We're requesting that a connection point and driveway to our current parking lot be made on the proposed east side of the property. Again, we would like to discuss this with the developer, but we haven't been able to get a hold of him. No return phone calls from Mr. Cox. The new connection on the east side would be right over our existing septic field. So we're asking if there's going to be infrastructure provided for the current residents and for the current church building on the east side, or some sort of connectivity to the Mecklenburg County stormwater system. Our current property is currently limited on impervious space, excuse me. We're at the maximum, so anything we do adding roads or anything else is going to cause us additional money to build a BMP or SCM to handle the stormwater on our property. We're asking for some sort of connectivity to the proposed site so that we can share in that stormwater mitigation. We're asking, can we connect to the developer's sanitary and stormwater systems? We're asking if we can connect to their BMP or SCM systems. And again, the money's not in the church's budget, and any money that we spend on that would have to be removed from our existing community service and outreach. As I mentioned a second ago, we've tried to contact the developer a couple of times. I've got his cell phone number, and he's still not responding to any of my calls. We purchased about $80,000 worth of land along Caldwell Station Road to give us frontage on 115 for exposure. We spent $35,000 in putting a sign on the frontage of 115 on the other side of the railroad tracks. And so we've got a lot of money invested on 115, and now the residents and the visitors are going to have to figure out how to get through the neighborhood and then add additional traffic to the neighborhood in order to get to our church building. We're asking that the development not be approved in the current presentation. We're asking that we meet with the developer and get these issues resolved, or figure out what we can do to get it resolved. We don't see this as an improvement of the community by adding additional traffic to Mays Road and to Caldwell Station Road. Long term, we're not opposed to the development once we get these issues resolved. The other question is, what happens to the spike strips along 115? They're not mentioned in any of the developer's plan. There's no mention of maintenance of those along where the loading dock station is and the old train station depot. None of that information has been provided. We're wondering about those spike strips. They're not under contract. They're not listed in the lot numbers or the property ID numbers. The infrastructure, where's it going to come from? It mentions that they're hoping it will come from the east side of the property, or alternate route would be go across 115. Well, it's cost prohibitive to go across 115 in the railroad tracks. It's already been tried by several other developers. And finally, we're asking that you deny the plans based on their comment that they're trying to be a good neighbor. We're just asking them to meet with us so that we can get these improvements included, and then we would be in favor of the proposed development. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, any questions of staff or the applicant? Quick. Commissioner Munger?
Sure. Question for the applicant. Can you give me what the price point for the apartments, for the townhomes, and for the senior living would be?
I don't know the answer to that at this time. I don't know the answer to that at this time. It'll be market rate. It hasn't been determined at this point.
Thank you.
I suggest you get up with the church.
Yeah, absolutely. And to clear up confusion, I'm sorry. So Mark Mahoney's right, was the lead developer on this. Mark's no longer with us, so I've picked up this project. So I got a feeling maybe you're calling Mark's cell phone, but yeah, I'm happy to stay here as long as you need.
There's plenty of space over there. And it says, an FYI, we've contacted Charlotte area transportation system and said if this should get approved, they should put a bus stop there, so it's on our radar and on theirs radar. However, as you just heard previously, it's taken me quite some time to get some other enhancements, but at least they're aware of it. So, any other questions? Okay. Thank you. We'll close that public hearing. All right, the next public hearing we'll open is 7B, which is conduct a public hearing on petition R21-08, a request by the property owners of numerous parcels to rezone the subject properties from corporate business to corporate business conditional district to modify the ordinance buffer requirements for the proposed industrial development. Mr. Priest.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This time, I'll go ahead and put my staff report into the record, please. And so, yes, the application is a conditional rezoning plan, preliminarily entitled Beltway Industrial conditional rezoning, and the applicant is Strategic Capital Partners. So the property in question here is in between Hambright Road and Alexandriana Road along the west side of Interstate 77. And you see the parcels there that are highlighted and hatched. The property in question is wooded. It's got swim buffers going through it. We did a little context map here where you can see the proposed site plan in relation to surrounding development. It's located, again, right to the south of that parcel where the Katz Park and Ride is proposed there, near the corner of Mount Holly, Huntersville, and Hambright. And again, just north of Alexandriana. So the proposed rezoning plan here, oriented north and south, and so you can see the true orientation there. Over 1 million square feet of office, warehouse, and industrial distribution type uses. Currently 3 buildings are proposed on 3 different lots. Major subdivision is proposed with the street for the buildings to front on per the Huntersville zoning ordinance requirements. The rezoning would be from corporate business to corporate business conditional district. The modifications are requested only to change the buffer requirements. So no uses would be the change. It would stay corporate business, but they're looking to modify the requirements of the I-77 buffer and also the interior buffer along the new public street. So just a quick a note here, and this was in your staff report as well, that this is the public hearing continued from July. The ordinance actually says that we can't have updates at the actual public hearing 3 weeks before the public hearing. So the applicant has submitted some updated plans last week. Staff is continuing to look at those, but at this time we couldn't forward that new plan to the board based on the ordinance requirements there. So this is based on the old 719 plan. So a lot of these comments that I will briefly go through, because again some of these have changed. Some of them will be updated by the applicant in the updated plan. So the rezoning site plan issues that we're currently looking at right now, swim buffer disturbances. So one of the issues that we'll be dealing with also with a text amendment that will be coming before the board, and public hearing is actually for tonight, is to change the way that swim buffers or water quality buffers for streams are handled in the ordinance in the corporate business zoning district. So currently, in order to build and disturb and fill on a stream for an intermittent stream, you have to go to the Board of Adjustment and then mitigate for water quality purposes through the ordinance. What the applicant is seeking to do with the text amendment, as will be discussed, is to change that to, with mitigation, use the conditional rezoning process as a review that would allow that disturbance. So, but currently the ordinance still as it stands, and so that is an issue that we're being worked through with the applicant right now through that text amendment process. The traffic impact analysis, an updated traffic impact analysis was submitted late Friday. Staff has not gotten a chance to review that, but that was submitted, so we're going to try to take a look at that and get that reviewed. Again, as mentioned, the buffer modifications that are proposed along the interior street, you see the two things before you, the maps before you in the bottom. The overall design, the site is to have an 80-foot buffer for most of the interior street, but where they don't have it, it's pinch points. Small areas that would go from 15 to 20 feet at certain areas, not the entire scope, but in certain areas where they can't make the 80 feet work. So that's the current proposal there. Also, the I-77 buffer is similar. They're going to keep the 25 feet along 77 existing vegetation, but then disturb and replant 25 feet closest to the development is the current proposal. Tree mitigation plan, we're working on the tree mitigation plan to get a plan that shows specific plantings to meet the mitigation requirements of the ordinance. Rezoning notes, the plan that is currently submitted has rezoning notes that show complete flexibility administratively. Staff recommends that only minor revisions to the plan be administrative, and any complete redesigns come back before the board for those changes. The street design, the current plan that was sent for the public hearing does not have street trees and sidewalks on both sides as required by the ordinance. However, taking a sneak peek, coming attraction, the updated plan that was submitted does have sidewalks on both sides of the street per ordinance requirements there. So the Greenway, these are not issues per se, but just FYI in regard to changes that were made based on long-range plans. So one, the Greenway location, if you see the top pictures that are shown, Mecklenburg County has the Greenway going rather than through this property, It goes up Mount Holly Huntersville Road and down Hambright, around the property in question. Our current greenway plans show the property going through the stream that transects this property. So it's our understanding that Park and Rec is wanting to update our plans to match Mecklenburg County at this time. So staff is comfortable modifying the plan so the applicant does not accommodate the greenway through this property. So block length, one thing we wanted to mention too, the ordinance does require that for industrial properties, a maximum of 1,500 feet is established for block length, and so the block length is broken up more usually because what's proposed is, I believe, 2,000 feet around that area. So what staff is comfortable with is, if you look at the plan, the context map to the south, there's not really an opportunity for further breakup of the street. Because if you look to the west, well, first you got east, you got I-77, so you're not putting a street on I-77. And to the west, you have a cemetery along to the south, so you don't want a street there, of course. Then you go to the north, following up that interior street, there's a BMP, there's a stream, and then in the circled area in the red, that's really the first opportunity that you really have to break up that proposed street. So staff is fine modifying the block length requirement as well through the conditional process. An update in regard to Hambright Road and a connection there. So as brought out in your staff report, CATS, the Charlotte Area Transit System, is putting in, is proposed and funding to put a park and ride system right there to the north on Hambright Road. If you see in red, there is a private drive that is proposed to really function like a public street and to stub at the applicant's property to the south. So what staff has been working with the applicant and CATS on is trying to get together and make a full public street connection from Hambright Road to Alexandriana. So that's currently in process. So we're still working with the applicant on that. And staff recommendation, staff is supportive of the application and the reason for the application in order to modify the buffer requirements. We're just working on some of the conformance issues, the TIA with the ordinance, and we'll get that worked out by the time final plan comes around. So that'll conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here to do a presentation as well.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Commissioner Walsh?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear that there are going to be sidewalks on both sides. With regards to the block length, is there any way to break that up with one of my favorite things, a traffic circle or something like that, to kind of slow things down a little bit?
In regard to, I mean, that's something that we could discuss with the applicant. What we were talking about mainly was regard to having a stub and having connection from a street perspective. As far as traffic calming, is that what you're looking for?
Well, no, I think you said they're looking at 2,300 square feet and maximum supposed to be 1,500?
That's correct.
Yeah. So is there any way to put something somewhere down that 2,300 square feet, 2,300 feet to slow people down a little bit?
I can discuss that with staff and with the applicant, and we can try to see what we can do to break up that long expanse.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The applicant would like to address us?
Thank you, Brad.
Good evening. Please introduce yourselves. You have 15
Susan Irvin.
minutes.
I represent the applicant, Strategic Capital Partners, and I want to thank Brad and planning staff for working with us throughout this process, and thank Brad for his presentation as well. I'm going to skip through some of the slides that he's already covered. One of the things that I wanted to mention about Strategic Capital is just the amount of experience and the amount of assets that they have. They are
the developer, owner, and operator of more than 9 million square feet of office, industrial, and mixed use. Right now, their properties are valued at almost $1 billion throughout the country. They're generally built to suit and master plan, but the more important thing is kind of where they've located. Their focus for the last 5 to 7 years has been on industrial space. And right now they've built about $450 million worth of Class A industrial properties. So I wanted to just introduce you a little bit to Strategic Capital. Here are 3 properties that are nearby. This first is Patriot Park in Durham, North Carolina. With all 3 phases, they are at about 900,000 square feet. Rock Hill Commerce Center in South Carolina. That is currently being developed. You can see that is focus on manufacturing and distribution. The phase 1 of this is 2 buildings, over 800,000 square feet. And another Morrisville, North Carolina, the 4540, a little bit different. It is a Class A office development, 400,000 square feet, 2 5-story buildings, a mix of offices and uses in the Research Triangle area. So just to give you a little introduction into this company, I think Brad has already really covered the key location of this property at an intersection of some major thoroughfares. And the areas surrounding it are very conducive to what we're proposing. This gives you some good kind of additions to what Brad had mentioned as far as what the surrounding uses are. I know we've all driven around here and are familiar with it, but just not seen it all as one piece. This is the Cats Park and Ride area that Brad mentioned. I want to talk a little bit about the Economic Development Employment Center base and kind of the importance of that to the economic impact of Huntersville. We use the in-plan program. As you all know, that's a program that is used by Lake Norman Economic Development Commission, but also cities, universities, counties all over the United States. It is a model that estimates the economic impact of a project such as this. And what we have done in our analysis is really limited the impact just to Huntersville. So we could look at Mecklenburg County, we could look at a larger area. We are focusing only on the economic benefits to Huntersville here. And you look at direct, indirect, and induced. The construction benefits are, under this economic model, total $148 million plus. This is just the construction benefits. The yearly operational benefits are about $83 million. And again, just the benefits to the town of Huntersville, zip code 28078. This is our timeline, just to give you all an idea of kind of where we started and how we got to where we are now. I'm going to ask Austin Watts of Kimley Horn to come up and talk a little bit with you about the changes that were submitted in this last revision. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board has of me as well. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Austin Watts with Kimley Horn, 200 South Tryon Street in Charlotte. As Brad alluded to in his presentation, the latest iteration of plans have addressed a large percentage of the comments that he had. In particular, some of the bigger ticket items, such as making sure that all the new public road through the center has both street trees and sidewalks on both sides of it. We're continuing to work with staff on landscaping and the interaction between the buildings and the buffers to make sure that the staff is happy with that. And then we're also working with the developer and with CATS to extend the public road all the way through over to Hambright, and the latest iteration of the TIA takes that into account. Again, this is simply the landscaping plan. You've seen that in your package, I'm sure. 80-foot buffer, as Brad mentioned, with pinch points in some areas to help maximize the site. And this is simply a colored rendered site plan. And this shows a couple of perspectives, because obviously as we are wanting to modify buffers, people want to know, what's it going to look like. So each of these sections is taken throughout the site. We've got 2 per location, one showing at the time of planting, and then one a little bit later whenever the material is more mature. In particular, this simply shows some of the pinch points to where we are beefing up the vegetation in some of the places where we are less than the 80 feet. And these are simply the TIA recommendations. These have not yet been vetted by staff. These were submitted last week based on the updated scope that was coordinated through the town and through NCDOT. So this is what the report currently states, and but there is still going to be some discussions with both NCDOT and town staff. So at this point, I don't have anything else, although we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of the applicant or staff at this time? No?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll close that public hearing. Our next public hearing is 7C. We'll open that up. Conduct a public hearing on petition TA 21-10, a request by the Huntersville Planning Department to amend the requirements of Article 7.5.3 of the Huntersville zoning ordinance to allow flexibility for CB, SP, CI buffers along public streets and rights-of-way. Mr. Priest, you're up again.
All right, so appropriately, we'll go right to the 80-foot buffer. Text amendment, proposed text amendment. So the current ordinance requires an 80-foot buffer in the CB, CI, and SP district along the property lines if it's zoned differently than CB, CI, or SP. But also, in the footnote you see here, is required along the right-of-way. So that's a second part where it's required. What's being proposed is to reduce that. Why? Well, what's the trend? Applicants in the corporate business zoning district have come forth and asked for conditional rezonings to modify, ask the town board to modify that 80-foot buffer to something that's less, seeking to modify it. Because what you're seeing and what you've probably seen come before the board several times are these very big buildings that have a very neat flat footprint, and so that takes up a lot of space, and then having 80-foot buffers along the entire perimeter really cuts into the usable space. And so they've been coming in and asking for rezonings. Along with that, we look at the 2040 plan, policy LU, land use 7.1, also recommended some flexibility for employment centers, which the corporate business zoning district is the primary zoning district for our employment centers. So they recommended some flexibility in the frontage requirements, therefore in the buffer requirements, in the ordinance, and so to try to modify that. So with that, and here's just a glance of, again, where are our employment centers, the purple areas in the subject areas near Alexandriana, Mount Holly Huntersville Road, the Huntersville Business Park, those areas, Commerce Center over on near where ABB was, Southwire. So those areas are all applicable, and this would apply to the text amendment. So what staff has done then is put together some modifications to allow flexibility based on the proposed use, what is near the street, and where is the location. Is it interior to a property, or is it on a thoroughfare? So those are the two questions that would be asked by this modification. So the ordinance is clarified here in the very top to say if you meet the architectural requirements of the ordinance, there's no buffer along the street. And that's essentially what the ordinance says now, with a clarification and making it a little bit more clear there. Then the second part of that would be tiers. 40-foot buffer for uses that are along a thoroughfare but don't meet the architectural requirements. Perhaps they might have parking in the front, or perhaps they have just a flat wall along the street. Now, a 20-foot buffer would go down all the way to 20-foot buffer if it's interior to a business park. It's not on Hambright Road. It's not on my Holly Huntersville Road. It's not on Statesville Road, Old Statesville. It's within a business park. Less buffer would be required and go all the way down to 20 feet. Now, what didn't change, though, if you notice on the bottom left-hand corner, we're still talking about buffers. The requirement is still to have an opaque visual screen. So you have a separation between the public street and the use that you're proposing to screen. So that hasn't changed in the proposed language. So how would that be applied? So here's just a brief example. You see a location in Charlotte here where you're along the street looking back at the building, but there's parking in the front. Okay? Then you look down here and you see maybe one of those big industrial buildings. On the right-hand side, they've got parking. On the left-hand side of the building, they got a truck dock, and the edge is blunted up against the public street. So in these two examples, if they were on a thoroughfare, you'd have a 40-foot buffer for both of those instances. If they're interior to a business park, you'd only have 20 feet for this type of development. Going to the other thing that we're seeing a lot of, again, in those distribution areas is the truck dock. You know, what do you do with the truck docks on the street side? Well, if you're on a thoroughfare, if you have the truck dock storage area, things like this that you see on the top picture, well, you would not qualify for a reduction if you're on a thoroughfare, and a full 80-foot buffer would apply. However, if you're interior, again, less visibility, then you would only be required a 40-foot buffer if you have the truck docks and the storage areas and the utility areas here. So that's mainly how it would be applied and how it would do. So Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board took this up and looked at it this month on August 5th and recommended approval unanimously of the language, and planning staff recommends approval as well. So that will conclude the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? Okay. Just a comment. I want to thank staff, the Huntersville Advisory Board, and the applicants or the businesses that have been affected by this in coming up with a good compromise. So thank you for that. Any other? Okay. We'll close that public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public hearing will open in 7D. Conduct a public hearing on petition TA 21-09, a request by Strategic Capital Partners to amend the zoning ordinance, allowing the Board of Commissioners to approve modification of the swim buffer through a conditional rezoning process in the corporate business zoning district. Mr. Simino, how you
Thank
been?
you, Mayor. Enter
Good.
staff report into the record, and the map that you see before you is a map of Huntersville 63 square miles. We have two major drainage basins, and this picks up where the streams are at, and also picks up where some of the swim buffers are at, so I can kind of use this to explain what this text amendment does. This is a request by Strategic Capital Partners to amend the buffer requirements. That area in red box, I'm going to zoom into that and just give you an example as to exactly how this text amendment would work. So there is the area that was in the kind of the southern central part of Huntersville. I-77 is the large white line in the middle. Alexandriana is the southern line. And everything in gray is zoned corporate business, and you see on the right side or the east side of 77, there's a kind of a light blue buffer, and same thing on the west side of I-77, light blue buffer. The ordinances today say that if you impact these intermittent streams or perennial streams, you have to get a variance with the mitigation. The proposed ordinance would allow an impact to those intermittent streams as well as perennial streams draining less than 50 acres with a conditional district rezoning and mitigation. So you do have to, if you impact it, you have to mitigate that. So on the eastern side, this is just an example, built example. It's a little difficult to see, but what we have is a smaller footprint office, and it just has a driveway going over the swim buffer, which is allowed. But the building is a small footprint, so it's able to avoid that buffer. Contrast that with the maps that Brad showed earlier for the project that's over 1 million square feet. These flex spaces are large, flat footprint. They're going to affect a lot of property, and that is what we are getting here to diversify our tax base. And when that happens, there are going to be impacts to swim buffers. And what I've shown here in red is where the swim buffers would be impacted, and that is a intermittent stream that would be impacted. So the text amendment as proposed by the applicants, staff looked at, and we made adjustments to it to fit our ordinance. We have run that through the applicant. They have agreed that those changes meet their needs as well. Very quickly, it's 3 different sections. Section 1 basically says in your corporate business district, as part of approved conditional zoning, the Board of Commissioners may approve modifications to those intermittent streams or perennial streams that drain under 50 acres, subject to implementing one of the 9 techniques, mitigation techniques in 11B below. So again, if somebody impacts it, they'll have to mitigate it, and they have 9 options. Section 2 is, option number 5 is just clarifying the language in there, just to simply say if you are going to preserve bottomland hardwood preservation at 2-to-1 acreage basis, which is accepted mitigation, just clarifying that the mitigation has to be above and beyond what we require to be preserved anyways. So that's what Section 2 does. And then Section 3 simply indicates that, that in addition to a variance, you could also achieve an impact to a swim buffer if you comply with 8.25.10, which is the section that they're amending. So staff recommends approval of this. The Ordinances Advisory Board on August the 5th recommended approval 8-1. Water quality is very important to us. From 2003 to now, even with all the growth we've had, our water quality has actually improved. So we have run this language through Mecklenburg County Water Quality. They too agree that the change is acceptable, and we are here to answer any questions. The applicants are here as well.
Just a quick question. What did you say about Mecklenburg County?
Mecklenburg County Water Quality has looked at this text amendment, and they agree that that makes sense to them as well. So meets their test.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner Walsh?
Yeah, Mr. Semino, and again, if this is a long explanation, I don't need it now, but I think you said there's 9 ways to mitigate. Can you just give me an example of one of those mitigation? It sounds like I think it's a good idea. We're protecting water quality, obviously. Just an example of a mitigation technique.
Here's an example, bottom hardland, and so number 5, so section 2, number 5. You can use bottomland hardwood preservation. So there might be properties that you're not required to preserve, and the developer could preserve on a 2-to-1 basis. If they impact a swim buffer 1,000 square feet, they might be able to save 2,000 square feet of tree save in these bottom hardwood areas that they would not have otherwise been required to preserve. Does that give you a sense?
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Munger?
Pretty much the same question, so I think I'm good.
Really?
It really was.
What are the odds? All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Once again, thank you, staff and everyone involved for coming up with a good compromise. We'll close that public hearing. Public hearing 7E, I have a letter that the applicant would like to continue it to September 7th.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to continue the public hearing for petition R21-06 until September 20th, 2021 at 6 p.m. to be held at the Recreation Center.
Second.
Commissioner Phillips, any discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes 6-0. Before we get into other business, I know people have been here for other business. We're just going to take a 5-minute break. Okay? And I say 5 minutes because I know nobody will be back in 5 minutes, but hopefully everybody can be back in 5 minutes. Are you 9:30? Out of here. I'll get you out of here by now.
They're going to be doing improvements on our property.
Brian, I love it. When you're optimistic, you hate it when you're approached. When you're about the only man that I want
Planning and engineering, what they're stating as far as what is actually being agreed upon in terms of.
I'm not messing with your kid.
Can I actually give it to them?
Well, you should be able to sign an encroachment agreement for like a temporary construction easement or possibly the encroachment agreement, but I want to look at it a little closer and ask for input from Jack and Stephen as to what they're saying is accurate, whether what they're saying is accurate.
I remember you telling me a lot one time before, if you keep drinking it, you're going to know about it. That's over. It's kind of one of my best. So.
That's okay.
Right. Where are they? Are they over there? Yeah. No, I don't. The rest of this time, keep me up late tonight too.
caught me.
If you don't, I'm sorry. Well, I got that big bag. I put notes in it for everyone. I'm sorry, but I just. Telling my wife I'm going to be home in about 40 minutes. No, Lord goodness, no. It's a reminder.
You gotta let him get over there. He ain't even over there.
No, it's Brian. Brian's always on time.
How are you? Been my ear.
Hey, Larry.
Have you
Larry.
been inside yet?
Can you-
Oh, it's beautiful.
All right, let's settle in.
Oh, yeah.
I know. It's still nice to get up and stretch.
Three more.
Things that we're grateful for.
I'll tell you.
I know. It's the little things.
All right, well, thank you, Commissioner Boone. We're ready to go? You ready? Okay. We'll go to other business. 8A is considered decision on petition TA 21-05, Metrolina Greenhouses, Inc., to allow dormitories in the rural and transitional zoning districts with a special use permit, subject to meeting specific criteria. Mr. Semino?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the request to amend the ordinance allowing an opportunity to apply for a special use permit for dormitories for, in this case, H2A housing. And this shows the 1,000 acres that's under control by Metrolina Greenhouses. They have transitional residential, rural, and special purpose zoning on their property. And this is going to be asking for a special use permit for dormitories in the rural or transitional zoning district. The red blocks that are there just kind of represent possibly could go in the transition district, possibly could go into the rural district. And it just depends on ultimately where the applicants want to go with this. This is the overall zoning map that was in your agenda packet. I entered the staff report into the record that show just kind of what properties qualify, the transitional and the rural, to apply for even a special use permit. So in your agenda packet, we kind of color-coded the text amendment. So everything in black was what was at the public hearing. What you see in red was new changes that were added as a result of the public hearing. So you'll note that under 9.62, the first thing that was added in red is the dormitory be located on a bona fide farm, at least 100 contiguous acres, and is on land being farmed by the occupant. So that kind of came out of the public hearing. The planning board further elaborated on it in that they're farming it on a full-time basis. So they're not going to be working one place and then jumping to another place with dorm. So that was a change that was added. Also that was added as a result of input from the public hearing is number 8, the dormitory cannot exceed 2 stories. The planning board further elaborated, said that they put a limit of 15,000 square feet per building and 5 building total. They also added that building and housing will be constructed and maintained to meet H2A programs or similar federal programs applicable at the time. So this new language was run through the folks at Metrolina. They have no problems with it from the addition at the public hearing as well as the planning board. And the applicants are here to answer questions. The planning board did recommend approval, as did the Huntersville Ordinances Advisory Board. And happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, staff, or a motion?
Do we want to hear from the applicant first?
Okay, do you want to hear from the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. Who's here for?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Art
Please
Van
introduce
Wingeren.
yourself again.
Yeah, Art Van Wingeren, the Metrolina Greenhouse, 16701 Huntersville Concord Road is residence, 16400 Huntersville Concord Road is where the business is.
Okay.
So
Who
nice
has
and
a-
close.
Who has a question? Commissioner Walsh.
Yeah, I have a few. The facilities, you mentioned previously that they're going to be inspected. Who are they going to be inspected by?
Originally, to build them, obviously, we'll have to have a permit, so it'll get
Yeah,
inspected that way.
I'm sorry, I should have clarified that a little bit. Once they're, let's go into it. Right.
So with H2A housing, the way it works, we have to be inspected 30 days before anybody moves in. So let's say everything goes well and we have these done by January 1st next year, then we have to be inspected, and then 30 days later, our H2A employees can move in. And then each subsequent year, we have to be inspected by the Department of Labor to make sure those houses are in good shape, livable, and good for H2A housing, and that they meet all the standards that they have. And that'll be done every year, 30 days before they move in. If we don't pass, then we got to wait, fix whatever they say to fix, and then again, that 30-day clock starts the day they approve it.
Okay. And how many U.S. Department of Labor inspectors are there that are doing these inspections?
I have no clue.
I gotcha. And you said that you can't house anybody. And by the way, I believe that you guys run a great operation there. It's the unintended consequences of maybe a less reputable person that might use this, because there are a number of issues with this kind of housing inspections. It's my understanding that there are 2 inspectors in the southeast region covering 8 states, and that they don't get to all the inspections they're supposed to get to. The other question I would have is, close to Huntersville, are there any of these H2A housing that you could?
There is one, Patterson Farm. I think probably a good many of us have been up there to pick strawberries or do different things. They've been doing H2A housing for over 30 years, and they've had H2A workers for over 30 years. They've had buildings there for over 30 years. One of the guys that works for us, one of our managers, his dad runs that whole program up there. So we actually went and looked there. That was actually the first place we went and looked when we were looking at H2A 5-6 years ago when we first started talking about it. And like I said in the public hearing, our whole goal all along has been to have a local workforce. That's what we want. We have 700 full-time local residents that work at Metrolina, just at the Huntersville location. And this is just more for the seasonal aspect of our business. And we're just having like every other business, we're having a hard time getting seasonal people. Sure. And it doesn't matter what we pay, we're having a hard time getting people.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Bales?
So, can you talk to me about where you're wanting to locate?
Yeah, there's a point here, right? Whoops. Okay, whoops. Go back.
Reverse.
Oop, I had it. Which one's the pointer? Is there a pointer in this or not? All right, so where we're looking at is right there, right where that H2A is where we're looking at right there. And the reason we picked that, if you look right there, there's a fire hydrant. So that's our water for the site. Sewer is right above the A is where it's at. So that's our sewer tap and our water tap. So obviously with 100 people being there for 10 months, you can't build a sewer system for that. The state's not going to allow that, so it have to be on city water and city sewer. If we do it where the rural area is, our closest point, even though there's a fire hydrant here, is you got to go under a creek to do it. City of Charlotte's not going to do that for us. We're going to have to do that. They're not going to allow us to go under a creek. So the closest tap is right there, and it just got put in last week because it's for the greenhouse. I measured it out today. It's over 12,000 feet to get here. We've spent 2.5 years trying to get that water hooked up. We built this greenhouse right here. This is what we call MX5. I have a break room in there that has plywood over the doors because I have bathrooms that have been finished for 2 years, but I can't use them because I have no water or sewer yet. It's coming. We'll get it. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be done. Obviously, COVID didn't help anything with this, but our employees that work in that area are having to use porta johns is what we have there for them right now. So, and that's part of it. That's just the way it goes. But for us to do this and do it right, we want to be near city water, city sewer. Where I'm putting it, we're going to be within 200 feet of the rural district anyway. I know that's not rural, but it's within 200 feet of it. If we'd have known 2 years ago when we bought this property, we were even thinking about putting it here, I would have gone ahead and rezoned that to rural or made it rural as we bought it, but we didn't do that. So that's why we want to put it in the TR. It's not for any other reason, but water and sewer are feasible and close is what they are.
Okay. Can I ask another question,
Sure.
please? Mr. Semino, Metroline is agricultural. Farming is farming agricultural allowed in transitional residential zoning?
That's correct. Yes, it is.
May I make a motion?
Commissioner Hines had a question.
Okay. Sorry, I did not
And
see
I
that
have a question
hand.
too.
Thank you. One quick question. If this is approved and you place one of these facilities where the H2A is in TR, approximately how far away is that from the residents there on Sims Road? And it looks like some private easements.
Yeah, so I actually did that today. It's 1,700 feet from the closest home is what it is. So 1,700 feet. So about a third of a mile.
So there'd be a cluster of up to 5 facilities?
Yes. Right now our plan is to build between 3 and 4 because we do have 100, it's 100 per building. We have 100 H2A workers that will be there from January to December, the 10 months, so January 20th to November 20th roughly, so it's called the full 10 months. The other 200 to 250 will be there 90 to 120 days during our spring rush. When we're down to 100, we're still going to put 25 or 30 in every building because the building does much better when somebody's living in it as opposed to nobody living in it. So, we're going to make sure there's somebody in every building for 10 months that they're there. 2 months, nobody's in it because with any H2A, you have to have a 2-month break between when they leave and when they start or when they come back. So, and I think I told you guys at the public hearing, this H2A is a lot different than I think what people have in their head when they really think about it. These are families that come over. They're dads and uncles and brothers and cousins, and they're living their dream is what they're doing when they're coming to America. So they're coming here to work for 10, 15, 20 years, make money while they're here working, obviously, but then once they do that for the 10, 15, 20 years, they go back to either Mexico or Guatemala, Honduras, wherever they're coming from, and they're living the life in that country then. So they get them 5, 10 acres of land, build them a house, and they're good to go. So they're making about 8 to 10 times what they could in their native countries.
Okay. Commissioner Walsh?
Yeah, when you were mentioning the water coming off of Huntersville Concord Road, you said there's a creek and you can't go under the creek. Can you go over the creek? I mean, how do we get water?
Well, we'll have to do that, and that's going through community encroachment, FEMA, floodplains, all kinds of stuff. And we can't dig in that. That's not allowed. So the only other way for us to do it would be go up Huntersville Concord Road, then take a right on Huntersville Concord Road. I know everybody here understands that, but nobody else will be telling that makes sense. And then go down Bradford Lane or Bradford Drive, which will be even a further run for us to do. And nobody's going to allow us to dig along the road to do that. So for us to get water, we're either going to have to get, if we did it in the rural, we have to get some type of main water line to Bradford Drive, which is going to be about 8,000 feet of run from either side. And, I just don't know if Charlotte's going to do that. Where they tapped, where we're at, right by the bridge, right when you go past Metrolina, you go over a bridge, that's where the water tap is at. They had to run that line 200 feet because Skybrook Development was already there. So they took care of that.
So, Mr. Semino, I'm not going to beat this dead horse, but so you're saying if we had a community there, they could not run sewer to the community because there's a creek there? I guess we can't.
Well, I mean, it'd have to be engineered, yeah. I mean, you can get, if you pay enough money, you can get water and sewer at a lot of places.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Thanks.
And I'll tell you, we just on that, we've spent over $350,000 with CMUD trying to get water to our site now as it is. So $350,000, obviously that's a lot of money. Our bigger thing is the 2.5, 3 years that it's taken. That's the bigger issue.
Okay. Any other questions, motions?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. In considering the proposed amendment TA 21-05, the town board recommends approval based on the amendment being consistent with the LU-1, LU-10, and EV-2 of the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan. Also, making this approval contingent on the modifications that the planning board also recommended, and that is my understanding that the applicant has also agreed to. It is reasonable in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because it provides a special use permit option for the Metrolina greenhouse workers.
Second. Commissioner Hines? Any other discussion? Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, so been giving this one a lot of thought, and certainly I think Commissioner Walsh probably said it best. It's not about your specific scenario in terms of where that housing is going to be. I believe you will do a great job with it. It's what's next. And for me, opening that door to transitional residential throughout Huntersville and having the ability for that type of housing to be close to neighborhoods, and I realize, again, yours won't really necessarily be 1,700 feet, basically a third of a mile. Should be plenty of space, but we have to think about what happens the next time. Did we open Pandora's box? Did we make a fatal error by doing this? So for me, I'd like to make an amended motion. In considering the proposed amendment, TA 21-05, the town board recommends approval with the modification of limiting the availability of the special use permits for the use in the rural zoning district. The amendment as modified is consistent with the 2040 plan and policy EV2.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, any questions of staff? Commissioner Phillips?
Hey, Jack, could you clarify how many properties the TR Rural 100 acres impacts again? Wasn't it 6? The contingent?
We have these, the Cook Farm, Strickland family, Johnson family, Bragg family, and Westmoreland family. Those are the farms that are over 100 acres. Of course, Metrolina, so that you have to accept that. The Cook Farm, Cook family is Zone TR. Westmoreland is Zone TR. The Bragg is not. The Johnston family is actually Zone Corporate Business, so that wouldn't qualify. The Strickland family is Zone Rural. So you have a couple of them that are in the TR zone that would possibly qualify for a special use permit. So that's what would qualify. Then you have to go through the process of a special use permit. Does that address your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? So we have an amended motion, and I didn't write everything down because I couldn't hear you all, but if you want to repeat it again?
Sure. My apologies. I have to grab it real quick. I already flipped back. All right. In considering the proposed amendment, TA 21-05, the town board recommends approval with the modification of limiting the availability of the special use permits for the use in the rural zoning district. The amendment as modified is consistent with the 2040 plan and policy EV2.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor of the motion as amended? All those opposed? Okay, so we'll go back to the original motion. All those in favor of the original motion? All those opposed? So that motion passes 4-2. It's been requested by individuals watching us tonight that I list who voted against the budget. So against the motion. So Commissioner Walsh and Commissioner Munger voted against. Everybody else voted for, 4-2. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item is 8B, consider decision on petition R21-04, Spring Grove, a request by MI Homes of Charlotte, LLC, to rezone 62.82 acres south of McCord Road and Hagers Road intersection from general residential and neighborhood residential conditional district to neighborhood residential conditional district for 127 lot subdivision on numerous parcels. Mr. Pete. how are
Thank you, Mayor. I want to enter the staff report into the record and just give you a brief summary of where we stand and some changes that have occurred since the last time the town touched the presentation. This is the Spring Grove subdivision that you can see there in the striped area, accessed off of Hagers Road via McCord Road, currently zone GR and NRCD, and the request is to take all of that land and convert it to a new NRCD conditional district zone. Since the planning board has seen this, the number of lots has been reduced by 3. I think you heard that referenced in the public comments tonight. And so that would change the density to about 2.02. So again, just a slight dip in the proposed density for the project. I won't go back over any of the 2040 community plan or any of the other relevant items unless you would like to. But I do want to show you a new, an updated plan here, and there are several call-outs that I'm going to zoom in on and make you aware of. So you can see them all around. Just to quickly show you that in the, apologize, I'm looking for the laser. In this area, you can see that there is a driveway that has been indicating for Mr. Hagler, who owns some property located there. That's a detail that will be worked out at the next level if there is an approval. But again, that is not an issue for that single-family property to have a driveway. There is a buffer that is located in this particular area, and the commitment is to have 60 feet, 40 feet of it undisturbed, and then a fence, a solid 6-foot fence on the interior side, the home side rather, of the property along the future thoroughfare. That same buffer is located along here as well, in that same standard of 60 feet plus 40 feet undisturbed, and then the fence on the backside. And then the 3 lots that were mentioned, they were located here at the Ulston connection, and they have been removed. Also, the extension of some of the street that would have served those lots has been removed. However, there is still right-of-way that is being dedicated to move off of the property and to connect into the soil supply property if it were to redevelop. And then lastly, there is the plan that you have before you tonight makes the connection to Hagers Road on the east side. And the note here indicates that the town would analyze traffic calming to be put into place, whatever is appropriate. Could be speed bumps, etc. To remind you of the, this is the transportation issues. The TIA has been accepted by the town's staff, and you can see there that there are the requirements on 115, and I can read those in detail if you'd like. Construct the northbound right turn lane on 115 with 100 feet of storage. Add protected permitted phasing to the existing westbound left turn lane on McCord, and add overlap phasing to the northbound right turn lane on 115. The second requirement would be at McCord and Hagers, and that would be to construct an eastbound right turn lane on McCord Road with 100 feet of storage, and to construct the northbound Hagers Road approach to have an exclusive left turn lane with 100 feet of storage and shared through right turn lane. In addition, per DOT, a left turn lane with 100 feet of storage at appropriate taper is required on McCord Road, and the development will need to coordinate with the McCord Industrial Site, which is on the north side of McCord, to align their driveways with the realigned Hagers Road. And of course, final TIA approval is pending, which essentially means the loose details would be buttoned up by town staff, and then DOT would wrap up their commentary as well. So from the public hearing, the staff's recommendations were shown here, and just a few updates. Again, I've mentioned the second bullet is the TIA has been accepted. The residential street cross sections in front of the 52-foot, staff has worked with the applicant to create a scenario where they provide that on-street parking for those smaller lots, and that has been satisfied. We're still working out a few minor details, but we are confident that it will be satisfied, and the applicants who are here tonight will convey to you that they will comply with the regulation however they need to do that. The Kaufman lot access frontage has been provided, so that is satisfied. The note number 4 on sheet RZ201, the needed language has been added, so that's been satisfied. Of course, they obviously still have the red line comments that are outstanding. This is always the case. And then there was a further recommendation to add a more substantial buffer along the soil supply border. And as I went over just a few moments ago, that has a more substantial buffer has been added. Again, if you have any questions or comments about that, you can certainly weigh in on that. And so the planning board made their recommendation. They did vote to approve the plan as presented, 8-1 vote. They found it consistent with the 2040 community plan, and they added the following conditions. And then I've added a little bit of commentary based upon the latest plan. Number 1 was to provide a written disclosure statement provided to each buyer that they must sign regarding soil supply. As of the packet that went out to you and as of the materials that I had, we have not seen any of that. So I have no update or anything to show you with regard to that. So I think you could speak to the applicant about that. The second bullet is that construction traffic should not be permitted to use Hager's Road. Now, I believe the applicants are agreeable to that, but again, I have not seen a note to that effect. So that would be something for the applicant to address. Third bullet, the TIA would need to be resubmitted and accepted. That has happened. Provide on-street parking requirements on 52-foot lots. That is, again, committed to and will happen. All outstanding staff comments and red lines would need to be addressed. That's pending, of course, but that's very typical. The east connection to Hager's Road to be an emergency access only and not a primary street for this development. Again, the latest plan has changed. You can see there that the plan that went out in your packet had a fire access only connection. The plan that was given to us today, it is a full connection. The next bullet is to revisit the tree save of the creek and attempt to save additional trees. My understanding is the applicants did do some of that. They did not find any that they could identify that would be saved. They are still compliant, and they have committed in the notes that if they are able, through fine level of engineering that would happen at a construction level, to save additional trees, they will do so. Again, if you'd like some elaboration on that, the applicants could speak to that, but the commitment is that they will try their best at the next level to save more, but they are compliant. Conduct a habitat survey of any protected species that might be found in this particular area. An investigation was done and a report was produced by the applicants or their consultant that was attached to your staff report. It did not find any active nesting sites, specifically for red-tailed hawks, but furthermore, I think the report indicates what the requirements of them would be. There's a period of time, I believe it's from February to May or June, where if anything happens, you really can't get in there. But I do not think that in the long term it prohibits that development. It's just that you have to stay away at a certain time, and then you have to mitigate following all of the procedures that would be involved. So they're well aware of that, and they have provided that report to you. And then the adjacent soil supply, there should be a 60-foot buffer to include 40 feet of undisturbed area and a fence. And they have provided that on that side. So that is the last part. The only other thing that I'll mention, which was not part of the motion, I want to make that clear, the planning board also made an additional request that the town consider adding Hager's Road to their CIP for eventual street upgrades, and that they assist the Hager's Road residents in acquiring public water and sewer connections. And there's nothing more to that comment, but that's what they convey. So I am happy to answer any additional questions that you have. And the applicants are here as well. They do not have a presentation, but are happy to answer any questions as well.
Commissioner Hines?
Mr. Pete, what does a fire access only connection look like?
That would essentially be something that's gated, and it typically would, we have a couple of examples around town where it might be a reinforced part of a berm or a landscape area with some low shrubs, something that a fire vehicle could go over without doing obviously any damage or major damage to anything. Or most commonly, you would find what's called a knock gate, where the fire department would have access to it, and it would be put in place, and you would only use it in case of emergency. But it doesn't allow, regular or daily usage.
So, Hawks Landing was the subdivision approved on this parcel before, on the back side.
That's correct.
How many access points did they have? Do you recall? Because I know Hager's Road was the main access point. Did they have any other access
That's
points?
correct. And I don't believe it connected to Olston. So now again, I will say I'm not going to speak for the fire marshal's office, but I will say that that Hawks Landing development preceded the fire marshal's, let's say, renewed critiquing of all developments to make sure that these safety issues were being adhered to. So again, can't speak for their comment, but that development only had one entrance, and it was completely reliant on Hager's Road.
Okay. I know that our ordinance, we really believe in connectivity. Staff's perspective of it was only fire access, did that completely defeat the point of our connectivity in our ordinance?
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that connectivity is very important, and it serves to create the network that we know through large road building, thoroughfares, DOT's limited ability to provide. Connectivity is the solution for our ability to get around, especially for safety as well. Does a fire access only provide something? Well, yes, it does. But we have examples around town where connectivity after the fact was desirable, and we think it's pretty clear in our community plan as well as the application of the same principle through subdivisions all throughout town that it's something that's important.
Okay.
Commissioner
Thank
Munger?
you.
Sure. Another question on that fire access there. Would the road be paved if you used a knock gate? Would it essentially be paved all the way through?
During the as it went into the planning board, the intention was that they would build the full cross-section and pave it all the way up to Hager's.
So if at some future date they decided, you know what, it makes more sense to have this connectivity, would you basically just take down the gate and you have a full functioning road?
Well, I guess the best way I could answer that is that Hager's Road is a town road owned by the town. The new street would be a town street owned by the town. You have full jurisdiction over it.
Okay. And another question about something slightly different, and I apologize. Someone in the audience had asked about a designated tree buffer area that is not on the plan. Are you familiar with what she was speaking to there? And I apologize, I don't know the exact area where that was.
Are you talking about during the public comments?
Yes.
Yes. So this plan was provided to me by the adjoining resident, Ms. Stiers, who spoke. And what she's referring to is there is a limit of disturbance line that is drawn in here. And it basically says that this particular project will not cross that line, and it will have, so essentially, this is the Stier residence, all of that will not be impacted. Now, that particular line and that particular illustration are not in the plan set for the rezoning. It's usually a more fine-grained element of a plan that we would expect to have defined if it were to be approved and go to construction. It is not a problem if the board would like to put that line in the plan, but I'm just letting you know that that particular line that Ms. Stier spoke to is not on the plan as we speak. Now, I can't speak for the applicant as to what their opinion about adding that to the plan is, but they can certainly speak for themselves in a moment.
I say we can ask them, but thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Walsh?
Mr. Peak, could you bring up a picture of the layout of the community? So there seems to be a concern by the folks who live along Hager's Road that the traffic from this community will, flood their community or overwhelm their streets. as I look at this, and I can't quite see the number, but those properties south of the eastern connection to Hager's Road, as I look at that, if I were living there, I would take a right or whatever out of my driveway and I would go straight out, as well as those kind of to the east. It seems like there's very little advantage. If we were to align the other entrance or change the other entrance of Hager's Road to make that a left into Hager's Road, it would be even less desirable to ever use Hager's Road. I mean, I guess I'm asking you for your opinion on, if you look at all those homes, how many people are going to backtrack to Hager's Road?
I don't know that I'm comfortable trying to estimate what that trip distribution will be. What I can share is the thought that if you make the entry into Hager's Road from the new entry into the Spring Grove, I would concur that it makes it less enticing.
And it is part of Huntersville DNA to do connectivity. We're hooking up David at Kinney Farm Road. The North State project, we hooked into an adjoining neighborhood, so we kind of have a history of doing that. I'm sure with the election coming up in November, I'll lose a few votes even saying this, but I believe that connecting is the right thing to do.
Okay. Commissioner Bales?
Talking about making Hager's a left turn, has anyone had that conversation with the developer?
Yes, the developer has taken a stab. I think they can elaborate on how far they went with it, but I think that they have looked at preliminarily at making some adjustments. One of the challenges is with road design standards and the Steyer property, at least in terms of sort of not impacting it. I'm not going to say that there is not a way to do it per se, but based upon what has been conveyed to me through some exercise, it was a little challenging to maintain the town standards and not impact the Steyer. Now again, to what level it would be impactful to the Steyer property, I do not know.
Thank you. Oh, wait, I do have another question.
And of course I'm sorry, but that was also with the goal of preserving as much of the existing site plan as they could. Are there ways to kind of significantly redo the front? I'm sure there would be.
Show me exactly where the fencing starts and ends on this map.
So, apologize, I'm trying to read there. You can see the label. So the
Yes.
fencing should be, and again, they can correct me, but I believe that it goes all along this common boundary. You can see that dark line in the back. It goes, they specifically call out between lots, I believe, 13 and 37 to have that. I may have misspoken. It may be that the fence only goes from 13 to 37, and it does not go behind these here. But I see a fence call out right there, so we'll let the applicants clarify, but I can say definitely unequivocally that against what's considered the soil supply side, it goes along that edge.
Okay, and the last question in regards to the fence is, how tall are we going with
I
this
believe
fence?
it's 6 feet,
Okay,
and that would be behind 40 feet of undisturbed buffer.
right. Okay. I would like to hear from the applicant
Well,
whenever
I have a
we're ready.
question.
I said whenever we're ready.
How long ago was the Hawks Nest development approved, plus or minus?
Hawks Landing is
Hawks Landing, sorry,
2009.
2009. Northstone has been around for 20 years, so
I think more than that.
more than that. Well, I think I've always tried to be consistent, and I think if you have a connection into Northstone through Olston, for these handful of homes down here, and then maybe even for the Northstone people to come out, then you should have a connection through the east side of Hager's as well. So I think you run into an issue if you're not consistent. So in my opinion, we should be consistent. And, you know, as Commissioner Wall said, we have numerous projects right now that Patterson Road and David Kenny and on and on and on that connect into communities. And these things have been planned for, you know, 12 years for Hawks Landing and 20 or so years for North Stone. So, anyway, the applicant's here. Somebody's here for the applicant.
Great. Good evening.
Good evening.
Susan Irvin for the applicant. I also like to introduce Katie Bradley with Timmons Group, the project manager, and Cody Simino with MI Homes. I only have two things to say, just minor clarifications. I want to thank David and the planning staff for their work on this project. We have provided a disclosure form, and I believe Cindy told me that that was approved by the town attorney, and I believe it was mentioned in the public comments as well. And the fence does go along all of the lots. The difference is the additional buffer, the 60 feet, is between lots 13 and 37. So, but the fence does go along all of those lots. I don't know, does anybody have anything else to add that I missed? I don't think so. Any questions, though?
Commissioner Phillips?
Just to have you guys verify, I've already talked to the landowners, but the entire right turn lane from Statesville onto McCord, from what I understand, you guys haven't even spoken to the landowners, and yet you're including their property as something you're going to acquire. Can you guys comment more on that? Because that's a bit disturbing, because that's a small business in this community that could absolutely be ruined.
So I'd be happy to answer that question. One of the requirements of the traffic impact analysis, off-site improvements, is the additional lane northbound on 115. And that's often the case. Traffic impact analysis can provide a list of improvements that are required. The process is that the engineering for what's actually required is not done until all of the construction documents are done in the site construction phase of the project, which comes after the zoning approval. So until the engineering is done, the applicant doesn't know what those roadway improvements will be. The typically contacting those property owners, you don't normally do it until you know what it is you need to ask for. I will say that Commissioner Bales mentioned to me that the Doves did want to be contacted, and I immediately passed that along to Cody Simino, and he did contact them, and I think they're planning to meet sometime this week. But again, the actual amount or what will be required won't be determined until the construction, full set of construction engineering documents are done.
Okay, Commissioner Hines?
The non-disclosure, is the intent just those property owners that back up to, or the entire community? I have a recommendation if you. Okay. And that will be provided at closing? Okay, thank you.
It'll be provided at time of sale. The residents will also understand what they're getting into prior to.
When they sign a contract.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Munger?
Yes, following up on a comment or a conversation I had with Mr. Pete, there was a young lady here earlier who commented on tree buffer, wanting to add that note. Would the applicant be willing to add that note?
I think we could add a note
near her property, the extensive grading around the rest of the site, I'm not sure if we would want to show the whole line, but maybe just near the Steyer property.
Okay.
And also, we spoke with our team as well. We have no problem providing a letter to the Steyers. We spoke with them this morning as well, just to give them a comfort level. I think the concern is if there's another face that changes over and they just don't feel comfortable that it gets forgotten and lost in translation. So we have no problem providing a letter, and we'll agree with them on that to get it signed so they have documentation.
That sounds great. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Bales, Commissioner Walsh?
Yeah, just one quick, Ms. Irvin, maybe I misheard it, back to the fence. I've heard it's going to be the whole from lot 1 all the way down, and then I heard 13 through something.
So you can't see it very well unless, I can't really zoom in, or I don't know how, but if you look at this plan, at the very top, it says fence behind lots backing up to soil supply access.
So the intent is to have the fence behind all of lots 1 through 37. The difference is that the buffer, the additional 60 feet, will only apply to lots 13 through 37, but the fence will be the entire way.
So lot 1 all the way down.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Bales?
I did have that question going back to any conversations around creating Hager's as a left turn. It's the first I was hearing about this today. Have y'all had that conversation?
Yeah, so this was brought up to us, I think, by David, and we looked into it, and as he mentioned, there's some challenges with trying to avoid impact to the Steyers, who we have spoken with quite a bit, because of how the road kind of curves, and there are limitations to distance between curves that go one way versus going the other way, reverse curves, and in order to maintain the required radius of curves by the town ordinance and meet that minimum distance between reverse curves, we were going to have significant impacts to their front yard, and so because of that, we didn't pursue that idea on this plan.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say that the radius didn't work, so you can see who the engineer is.
All right. Any questions, comments, motions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. In considering petition R21-04, the town board recommends approval of the Spring Grove CD rezoning with the following conditions. That you provide a separate written disclosure statement to each buyer that they must sign regarding the soil supply business nearby. Construction traffic is not permitted to use Hager's Road, and a gate would be added to the eastern end of Hager's to ensure construction traffic does not use Hager's. Once construction ends, the gate would be removed. Developer agrees to set aside funds for traffic calming devices on Hager's Road if warranted. All outstanding staff comments and red lines must be addressed. Provide a letter to the Steyer family regarding the limited disturbance. And that would be it, Mr. Mayor. Everything else is covered in the staff report.
Can I ask you to clarify the third point about the gate?
The construction traffic?
Yes. If you could go back through that comment.
You may reread it?
Please.
Absolutely. Construction traffic is not permitted to use Hager's Road, and a gate would be added to the eastern end of Hager's to ensure construction traffic does not use Hager's. But once construction has ended, the gates would be removed.
Thank you.
And there's a reason for that. We've seen some issues in other neighborhoods where construction traffic, even though they were not allowed to use the roads, they were. So I want to make sure that there's no debris or nothing else going down Hager's during construction.
And I'll second that.
Just want to make sure I didn't forget anything from the board members.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Munger?
Would that construction gate serve as essentially the same thing as knock gate? Is it potential?
I would speculate that it would be important to have that in a fire event, to be honest. It's something we'd have to explore, but we could certainly look into that.
Okay. The key thing I keep hearing is that, Hager's Road isn't wide enough to handle the traffic. And if you look at the neighborhoods, I have a density of 0.5 rolling into this new neighborhood. It's supposed to be a density of 2.02. I think the idea of having that separation between the two of them lends itself more to the transition. So I know you're going to hate me, but I'd like to make an amended motion to that, what she said, but to leave that traffic gate in place until Hager's Road falls into the CIP plan and the road itself is improved to a point where it can handle the capacity.
Okay, is there a second? Seeing none, that motion does not go. Any other discussion? All those in favor of Commissioner Bell's motion? All those opposed? Okay. For clarification, Commissioner Munger and Commissioner Phillips oppose that. Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is 8C, which is different. It's a quasi-judicial hearing. So we're going to open up a quasi-judicial hearing on the application submitted for the Brown subdivision. I want to remind everybody this is an evidentiary hearing in nature. The board must base quasi-judicial decisions upon competent, relevant, and substantial evidence in the record. Competent evidence is evidence that is sufficiently trustworthy and reliable, and that is legally fit and acceptable for consideration by this board. Speculative, irrelevant, or vague evidence, non-expert opinion as to something that requires an expert, and non-accepted hearsay evidence will likely not be competent evidence. Material evidence is evidence that shows that the standards will or will not be met. Evidence is substantial if it is relevant and regarded by a reasonable person as sufficient to support a specific conclusion. Speculation, unsubstantiated fears of the community, or vague assertions do not constitute substantial evidence. Quasi-judicial hearings are constrained by the standards in the ordinance and the facts presented. Only parties with standing, including the applicant, local government, and individuals who can show they will suffer special damages, have the right to participate fully in the hearing. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Other individuals may speak as witnesses, however, they will not be allowed to participate fully as a party, such as by questioning other witnesses or by calling other persons to testify. Witnesses will swear or affirm their testimony. General witness testimony is limited to the facts, not personal preferences or opinions. Certain topics require expert witnesses, including projections about the impacts on property values and traffic impacts. Individuals providing expert opinion testimony must be qualified as experts and provide factual evidence upon which they are basing their expert opinion. Mere conclusory testimony lacking foundation of the expert's opinion is insufficient to establish the existence or non-existence of a fact or conclusion. Even though the board may rely on other evidence, it is not objected to. If it is not objected to, the board should rely on competent, reliable evidence in making the decisions. So let's identify the parties. Mr. Peak, you're for staff, and who are the applicants?
Nate Bowman, 205 South Church Street, my engineer.
I am Vince Keene with Yarborough Williams & Houle, 5004 Billy Brook Court, Monroe, North Carolina.
And how long have you been an engineer?
35 years.
Okay, well, we'll consider you an expert. Mr. Trott?
Stephen Trott.
Okay, and is John Cabrera here? Come on up, sir. Do you own some adjacent land to this property?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so come on up and introduce yourself.
Hey, how you doing? My name is John Cabrera.
No, you don't speak yet. Just, I want you to introduce yourself, tell me your address, and then we're going to swear you all in.
Okay.
Come on up.
My address is 13507 Asbury Chapel Road.
Okay, and you own property adjacent to the Brown property?
They're going to build behind me.
Okay, great. All right, so let's swear everybody in. You ready? Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? Okay, thank you. Before we go any further, does anybody have any disclosures that they want to make at this time? Okay. Well, I'm sure we all know Mr. Bowman, and may have contributed to your campaigns, my campaign at one time. In addition, I know the Brown family. I know some of the members of the Brown family, and probably some of the people on this board do as well. Anybody have any conversations about this with anybody, either the applicant or staff? Okay. No emails, no nothing? Okay. All right. Mr. Peak.
Thank you, Mayor. Enter the staff report into the record. This is a by right subdivision. This property is located off of Asbury Chapel Road, just south of Huntersville Concord Road. It is 36.41 acres. The address, 13831 Asbury Chapel Road. It is transitional residential zone, 100%, as is all of the property surrounding it. And the proposal here is to provide 54 single-family homes. Here is context for the site plan. To the west or the left of the image that you see, this is the Mirabella subdivision, or a portion of it. And then there are just large lots of record along Asbury Chapel. And then across the street, across Asbury, is some of the remaining family holdings in the Brown and Miller and that type of ownership group. And then you have the Colonial Pipeline current marshaling field that they're working out of in this day and time. Here is the full site plan. You can see that the majority of the development is sort of in the northern area. There is a connection that runs from Mirabella, an existing stub, and it runs all the way across to Asbury Chapel. There is a stub to the north to what is underutilized land that is ripe for redevelopment, as we like to say. And that is the only stub other than the connection into Mirabella and Asbury. And then there is a creek crossing here along the Clark Creek, the north prong of the Clark Creek, and then it runs down here to another creek as well. Just got a quick blow up here. You can see a little more detail. There's some significant tree save, including very large buffers along Asbury. They will not be doing the standard street cross section on Asbury. They'll be preserving the rural character. The 2040 community plan identifies Asbury Chapel in parts as one of those roads that we want to preserve. And so we'll be looking to put a sidewalk and sort of meander it through the existing trees rather than create an urban type of street cross section. This blow up here shows you the urban open space that's in the center of the development. It is a green that is indicating on the plan its size is, escapes me, I believe it is, I will find it shortly and let you know, it's 0.61 acres. So it is centrally located and all of the residents will be able to access that easily. Very simply, that is it in a nutshell, and I'll be glad to elaborate on anything that you have, any questions that you have rather. The staff recommendation is that we find the application to be complete. We find that the application is in compliance with the requirements of the ordinance. And further, we would state that there is a modification request in the plan for this particular block located right here along the west side. And because the development to the west, Mirabella, does not offer any stub opportunities without significantly redeveloping the design of the site, we find that block length modification is appropriate in this instance. We would look to see that the TIA was not required by the town, but that any other transportation requirements or DOT requirements, specifically on Asbury, would be integrated into the final plan. Red lines, of course, are always there. There were two other recommendations that staff made, and that is that there would be the street running east-west from Mirabella to Asbury is a bit of a direct line. There's a slight bend to it, but it's pretty direct. And so we would not like to see that become, we would want to see traffic calming put into place. And so the applicant has indicated that there is a speed table right here at the base of the urban open space. And that is probably going to be one of the things that we would consider. But just indicating that there needs to be something there was the gist of that recommendation. And then the second bullet under recommendations was that there would be a private trail connection from anywhere in this particular area down to what will be a future county town greenway. And so that would be something that the residents of this development would be able to utilize. And so the applicant is here and can speak to those. And so with all of that, staff would recommend approval based upon those points. The planning board saw this last month during their meeting, and they found that the application was complete. They found it consistent with the community plan policies, LU 2.2, 9.2, and 10.2. The application complies with the ordinance, but they made the following additional comments. All the outstanding transportation and DOT requirements would be addressed. The red lines would be addressed. The east-west street should incorporate some traffic calming measures to be determined by staff. They did recommend that a trail connection from that east-west street down to the future greenway easement would be provided. They did vote in favor of the block length waiver for the block that I indicated. They indicated that there should be no construction traffic permitted through Mirabella. And that, of course, is something that we would look forward to from staff's perspective. And then the last bullet was that the buyer of the lot and the homes should receive a disclosure statement in writing of the past, present, and future environmental impacts of the Colonial gas line spill. Any questions of the planning board motion, staff recommendation, or the plan itself? And again, Mr. Nate Bowman and his team are here to answer any other questions you have.
Commissioner Phillips?
So are any of the lots or any of the land in the proposed site, are they in the spill sphere for Colonial?
Not at this point.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you putting the disclosure in there then. That's awesome.
And I just want to clarify, I can't predict the future, so we'll have the disclosure statement reviewed by Emily, but we'll speak to what's going on and what might happen in the future. But of course, we're monitoring it just like everybody else is in the area to make sure it doesn't go any further.
And just to clarify, all city water?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions of staff before we have the applicant come up? Mr. Bowman, do you have any other additional things to add? And then we can hear from Mr. Cabrera.
Just two things. NCDOT has required a left turn lane on Asbury Chapel with 75 feet of storage. And we specifically are reserving the greenway for Mecklenburg County, not dedicating it at this point. And we have not heard back from them about the reservation. So we're going to follow the ordinance to the letter this time. I've gotten caught dedicating too much to Mecklenburg County and getting very little back in return. We won't go into that right here, but it's in the approved plans as a reservation, not a dedication.
Question.
Commissioner Bales?
Yes. Mr. Bowman?
Mr. Bowman?
Yeah.
One of the staff's recommendations was to provide a trail connection from Roosevelt Grove Drive to the future greenway easement. Are you willing to build that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
We expect to work things through with Mecklenburg County eventually.
Okay,
It will be 3 years in February, in November, since we started working on some drainage easements with Vermilion.
Okay. All right. Mr. Cabrera, you want to come up? Can you Mr. Pete, can you pull up the map of this subdivision, the bigger one, so maybe Mr. Cabrera can tell us where he lives? Not that one.
Okay.
Give us the one that's a little more clear. All right. Can you show us where you live?
Clark Creek.
Are you off of Asbury Chapel?
I'm the last house right beside Clark Creek.
So somewhere in here?
Yeah,
On the other side, probably. I think he's on the other side of the creek, maybe.
Zoom out to that
No,
color.
yeah, I'm on this side of the creek. I'm the last house before Clark Creek.
What's it again?
Right
Yeah.
there.
Okay, so he's indicating that he is located right here.
Right before the bridge.
On Asbury Chapel.
Right, right. There's been a lot of developments, a lot of houses being built. Okay, ever since they've been building all these houses, I've been getting massive flooding in my house. I'm talking floods as high as that level there, almost getting to the top of the bridge. One time I went over the bridge. What is this community going to do to the flooding of
So Mr. Cabrera, please come to the microphone
Sure.
and address, so we're kind of the jury here?
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
So you
So
address
what,
us and...
what is this development going to do to the flooding? Is it going to give me more flooding in my house? Or what's it going to do? Are they going to expand Clark Creek to absorb the drainage of all those homes plus the other ones? What's going to happen? That's my concern.
That's your question, okay.
And I got pictures so you can see how much water flows through there.
Okay. So the question really before the board and something like this, and I'll defer to Ms. Sloop, is, so you're saying you have flooding now?
Right.
Will be
It's
worse?
gotten worse and
will-
worse and
but
worse.
because of this project, will be impacted worse?
What's going to happen? It's going to
Did you
impact.
bring anybody? I know you didn't, right?
Did I bring what?
An expert to talk about?
Oh, no, I
Okay,
came here to hear. They
I know.
asked me if I wanted to speak. Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to tell you what's going on my property.
Right.
And my adjacent neighbor's property. We both are getting flooded. You know, when it rains a lot, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Well, would, Mr. Bowman, would you like your engineer to address what types of things you do when you do a development?
Can I show you some pictures? Sure. Yeah?
Well, nobody's going to be able to see that, so we're not going to enter that into evidence, so can you just
Later
step
on?
aside, let him
Yeah.
walk up and
Okay.
let him answer? He's going to answer if you move aside.
Okay, thank you.
Please introduce yourself again. So.
Okay, again, I'm Vince Keene with Yarborough Williams and Houle, civil engineer. Yes, there's in the ordinance there is a requirement for detention of the stormwater from the project. We capture a majority, if not all, of the runoff from specifically the impervious areas in the project. The detention requirement is to detain the water to pre-existing conditions for the 10-year storm event. So in the 10-year storm event, there was a large, it's like a rainfall event that's going to capture the water in a proposed wet pond and a sand filter. So there are two BMPs that will be designed here to capture that year event and to detain it to the pre-existing conditions. So the pre-existing condition out there is partially wooded. We will analyze this as if it was completely and totally wooded. So to do a pre-existing condition that's totally wooded when it's not means that we're probably going to be detaining more than we probably have to, but that's the way I like to analyze it, as if it were totally wooded back in the day.
Okay. All right. Mr. Cabrera, do you have a question of this witness? Does that answer your question?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's not going to flood more of my house.
Well, in theory, they have to mitigate all the water runoff, and he's stating that it will do that plus any potential
Sure.
additional. So,
Okay.
okay? All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Sorry for being so formal.
No, it's all right.
Any other questions of the applicant or anybody? All right. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Walsh?
In considering the Brown subdivision sketch plan, we, the town board, find the application is complete. The application is consistent with the 2040 community plan, including policies LU 2.2, 5.2, 7.1, 9.2, 10.2, 12.3, EOS 2.1, 4.3, 8.2, 8.3, 10.1, PS 8.1, T 3.1, 3.2, and 5.3. The sketch plan complies with all applicable standards, although the following items must be addressed. A modification request for the westernmost street block length not to exceed 950 feet is approved, as there is no opportunity to introduce a street stub due to the abutting property being fully developed, Marabella subdivision. A street running east-west connecting Marabella to Asbury Chapel should incorporate traffic coming as determined by staff. Provide a trail connection from Roosevelt Grove Drive to the future Greenway easement. Buyers of the lot and homes should receive a disclosure in writing of the past, present, and future environmental impacts of the Colonial gas line spill. No construction traffic should be permitted through to Marabella. All required town or NCDOT road requirement improvements are provided. All outstanding transportation comments are addressed, and all outstanding red line comments are addressed. I would like to make a motion to approve the Brown subdivision sketch plan.
Second.
Commissioner Bales? All right, any other discussion? And of course, remind everybody that the application was originally submitted to the planning board, and the planning board made a recommendation. However, nothing that occurred at the planning board level, including the planning board's recommendation, should be considered as evidence that you can base your decision on. However, there can be some useful things that the planning board identified as issues, and this board may consider those. So, any other questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's 6-0. Okay. Staff will now draft, and I, or designated signee, will sign a final written decision to reflect the vote and the reasoning for this decision. That written decision will be provided to the applicant and other parties with the right to such notice. Thank you, everyone, for coming to our hearing. All right, 8D, consider approving revision to the Town of Huntersville personnel policy. Is anybody here, or we got a motion, or what are you doing?
Motion.
Motion, Commissioner Munger?
Sure. Motion to approve revisions to the Town of Huntersville personnel policy as noted in our staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Boone, I'll give you that one.
That's all right.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? It's 6-0. All right, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 6-0. Any closing comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Phillips? All those in favor? 6-0. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
We're gonna do more quietly.
I think I got through that.